Calling the meeting of March 10th of the Planning Board to order. Take a roll call. Sue Filbert. Here. Gordon Brewster.
Here.
Chris Olney.
Here.
Laura Tenney. Here. Sarah Creighton here. And I don't think Peter Morton is joining us tonight. And Mary Foley is, I think, on her way. So we have a few things. Thank you everybody for coming a little bit early. First order of business is to acknowledge correspondence. The only ones that I had were Lorraine Iavoni, March 3rd, Lorraine Iavoni, March 3rd, and Lorraine Iavoni, March 3rd again. And correspondence from Paul Orlando about the ADU bylaw, which I sent to everybody. We'll talk about that. Next order of business is the approval not required from Tom and Heather Ford, or T Ford LLC, 30 and 34 Pine Street. Mark, can you kind of give us an update where that is?
So it is very much the same plan with 3 Form A lots on Pine Street, and Mr. Ford's adjusted the back lot that runs behind all 3 of them to have the correct amount of frontage on the side street Deer Hill Road by running the line and noting that they're going to remove the garage that exists on the property so that they can create the correct amount of frontage for that lot. So
That's the only plan change, just that change in that one property line?
Yes, and the notes about removing the garage.
Is that in our packet now?
Yes.
We just I'm going to put it up on the screen here. Hold on. Find it. Shannon, can you give me a hint what it's called? We have so many files today.
It should be near the...
They're alphabetical. Oh, if I push modify. Oh, there we go.
It is called...
I got it. No, that's not the plan. Okay. I can share. So, Mr. Ford, you want to explain where the existing lots are and where and you can use that screen, but just don't touch the screen.
Absolutely.
So what we want to know is where the existing lots are and what districts everything is in, where the frontage is, and what you're proposing.
Okay, this
Don't
is
touch the screen.
Pine Street and Deer Hill Road. This is what was formerly the Hatcher House and the Kelly House. Kelly House is going to be removed in its entirety. The Hatcher House, which is number 30 of Pine Street, is largely to remain, but in order to make the frontages work for Lot 4, we needed 150 feet along Deer Hill Road. I mistakenly thought that the new frontage should be reflective of the new zoning district, but you had suggested that hadn't been approved by the Attorney General's office yet. So we went back to 150. The 3 lots along Pine Street are all well in excess of the 60-foot frontage requirement and the 6,000 square foot area requirement. So my expectation is that those 3 single-family homes that will look very much in context with the ones that currently exist along Pine Street. Go back and consistent with the new zoning, I think what you'll see there is either a cluster of single-family detached on a common lot, on a condominium lot, or what you might see is some duplexes. I'm hoping, to be honest, not to be the builder.
You're hoping what?
Not to be the builder.
And have you noted the zoning districts here?
I have, you can see them zoning A, zoning R2. If you go just a little bit further up, I think you'll see the new zoning in a cloud. you know, what do you call it, the commercial?
What does he say, zoning districts? I'm sorry, can you show us where the zoning, where you've noted the zoning district?
Right in the middle of the line, here's, right there.
Right here, okay, thank you. Technically
D2.
D2, not R2.
Yeah, D2.
D2. So just to clarify, and then, the zoning, the underlying zoning does not change with the multifamily bylaw. That is an overlay district, so your frontage and lot requirements do not change, just to be clear. But you've now moved the back lot line of 2 and 3 so that they are in their entirety in D2. Okay, Mark, have you reviewed this plan for compliance?
Yeah.
Okay, questions or comments from the board?
I do, if I may.
Yeah, of
I do
course.
have a question. So the house on the corner of Deer Hill and Pine Street was originally intended to be totally demolished, correct?
No, the opposite.
Okay, so that,
Expected to stay.
okay, so but now a portion of it's staying and half of it's gonna go.
Yes, and what had been the garage and what I would call the connecting link will be moved, I would say, to the rear of the house a little bit. I think it still needs the garage.
So this is a question actually for Mark. If I do this much, call it damage to the house by removing half of it, does the portion remaining now have to comply with setback requirements for, as if it's a new house?
I don't believe so, no, because it's, what's remaining is still there.
Okay, so this could stay as it is, because
So if it was like, for example, one side was on the property, and it could remain, it's in existence.
okay.
But
That was my question, though, specifically, because you can see that it tucks very close to both Pine Street and to Deer Hill, probably within the setback requirements of one of them, depending on which one is the frontage side.
I don't believe so. The setback in that
Done.
zone is 10 feet.
It's 10 feet?
Mhm.
Wow, front yard setback is 10 feet, wow.
So can I just, Mark, ask Gordon's question again, though? Let's just say on lot 2, that house was going to remain.
Mhm.
If the lot line were drawn, or is drawn, I can't tell, so that it was within the setback,
It would be creating
a
nonconformity.
conforming lot.
Right. So that would be creating the nonconformity as far as zoning goes, so that would be an issue that we would have to resolve with the zoning board and obtain a variance.
So, given that the house is not removed, it is there today.
Mm-hmm. But remember, Form A does not endorse or the creation of zoning compliance.
No, I understand that.
It only relates to frontage
Frontage.
and access. So if he creates a nonconformity, it's his issue that needs to get resolved. As far as that type of dimension.
But arguably, we're creating the nonconformity because of the,
Well, it's the person's application, whoever that is.
Where do you see the nonconformity, Sarah? This house is gonna be removed, the one on lot 2.
but it's not removed today.
No, not
It's there
removed
today.
right now.
It's there today, and things could change. And essentially, we are, by that property line, we are creating a nonconformity. That house were to, things change, not removed. Now we've got a setback violation, I think. It says 12.8 to the, you know.
To your point, Madam Chairman, I think the garage is in the exact same place. It's an existing garage. It's probably too close to the back side line because that's 15 feet down there. And that's why they.
But this lot line doesn't currently exist between lot 2 and lot 3.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Well, it's the same thing with lot 1 and lot 4, where the garage is to be removed, he's running the lot line right through the garage deck.
Exactly.
So, but that's not an uncommon practice to do that, because under a Form A, you're looking at frontage and access across the frontage on a road of suitable grades and widths to accommodate the use that's allowed by zoning. So those are really the standards that you're supposed to look at. If he creates a zoning nonconformity, that's a different issue. So if he, let's say he was trying to sell that house, that would come up during a title search and the sale wouldn't go through, and there might be the town building inspector might write some letters, etc., so that, you know, he would have to come in for his zoning variance or remove what's labeled here as a.
And this isn't a hypothetical, we have applied for a demolition permit with the building inspector, but he insists on a letter from National Grid for the gas and the electrical that have been removed, and because it's the winter, National Grid is not issuing those until it's all coming up.
So may I ask you another question? So is your intent on lot 2 to actually build a house not in that footprint, but wherever on the site?
I suspect that, I hope it's my successor and not me, will come in and say shared driveway between lot 1 and 2, and lot 3 would have its own drive. But
Hello,
somebody else.
how are you?
Okay, can you mute your? It's creepy. That. I'm just muting everybody.
I suspect there'll be a shared driveway between 1 and 2, and 3 will have its own driveway, but that's likely someone else's decision, not mine. Who will be before you?
Sure, can I just ask?
Yes,
a
absolutely.
question? So for our purposes today, access and frontage. So just to be clear, could you go through each lot and explain that?
Absolutely.
Access and frontage for each of the 4.
Okay, so we have to go with the zoning as it currently exists. So lot 1, I know, 75 feet where it needs to be 60, 64 feet where it needs to be 60, 7,400 square feet where it needs to be 6,000. And there is no wetlands on this site, so there are no.
And the access,
The access will likely be right up.
okay,
And it will likely share access with 34 Pine Street, which 7,200 square feet. The frontage area there is 80, not 66, 80, and it needs to be 60. The area is 7,200 where it needs to be 6,000. And lot 5, the frontage again.
4, not 5, right?
No, I'm sorry, 3. I apologize.
Don't
3.
confuse me.
Yeah, no. 3 is 80 feet
Okay.
of frontage. I expect the access will that be a private drive adjacent to the parking lot. At one point, currently they sort of share a drive, but we talked about moving my driveway off totally onto lot 3. And then with respect to lot 4, I suspect that will come before you as part of the new zoning with duplexes, and that will enter off of Deer Hill Road.
And the frontage is on Deer Hill Road, and it's
150-foot frontages on Deer Hill Road. And that'll be a condominium lot, and I suspect it will be cluster of single families, but I could imagine somebody wanting to do 3 duplexes.
So you're not doing the development of this?
I'm doing a land deal. I used to do the residential deal and the subdivision stuff, but we've gone through industrial stuff.
So, I'm not sure, so you're just dividing into 4 lots, and you're either gonna develop each of the 4 lots or sell them?
I'm going to do the promise that I made to you about demolishing the garage, the back of the house, and that lot, third floor, and do that. And then I'm hoping to find a builder, a residential builder, preferably somebody in town who has seen before, to do the duplexes in a single family. My brother is building over on Crooked Lane. He may be a-
Okay. So our job is to decide if we have access and frontage on these. So do I have a motion to endorse the approval not required? And I'm going to suggest that because of the confusion about districts in this area, that we've asked the applicant to adjust the Mylar to say zoning district B2. That is the correct district, we don't have an R2 district. And given where this is, also wondering if this should be, if we should also ask for a note that references the lot lines that are of 30 and 34 as they relate to the CHOD, because that limits how many units can be put there, right? Because the current lot lines? No, the past lot lines, the lot lines that existed when we passed the MBTA zoning, say that the maximum number you can have is the maximum with the lot lines on that date. We could add that note to the plan as well, because some future, in the future, that might get overlooked.
It can't get overlooked easily because it's
There's a lot.
quite clear in your zoning, but that's a 10 lot. I don't expect you're going to see 10 lots here, but it's 5 plus 5, right? 2 lots.
All right, maybe we don't need that note,
But
but you could have 3, 3, 3, and 5 under the new lot lines if that language didn't exist. I think.
You have 3 and 3. Is there
3,
2
3,
lots?
3, and then
total of
back.
10.
Total of 10.
Total of 10. Okay, so it doesn't matter. Doesn't change.
Can-
Okay,
can-
then let's
Can you help
not.
me understand that? I didn't understand that.
I think you're right, a total of 10, 5 and 5. Okay.
Can I ask one more question, Sarah? So I know A&Rs don't require a hearing, but before we do the
Yeah,
motion,
let's
should
do-
we see
Yes,
if there are
thank you.
any?
Yeah, I only have one screen. So I will take any public, thank you, Sue. I'm gonna stop sharing. See, is there any public comment about this A&R? How about it in the room? No. Okay, thank you, Sue.
I do have one question.
Absolutely.
The idea that you're going to demo things on this site, does this plan, an approval of this plan, does it lock him into doing the demo?
No.
It doesn't. Does that make a difference? So your question, Sarah,
Yeah,
before
is
about
we-
moving the property line right, I
Well,
don't
on
know,
both
5
of
feet
them.
away from
Well,
the,
and the back one, which is going to be demolished too, the 30. No, this one here. The same problem. It's
Yeah, that
actually
one.
creating. Creating what? What is the corner lot with Deer Hill
It's
and
gonna
Pine
be-
Street where,
It's going to result in an encroachment of the existing building, other lot.
so can we actually approve a lot line relocation knowing full well it's a nonconformance?
Well, one thing we could do to clarify it is to say that the A&R is conditioned on the demolition of those buildings. I don't think it's legal to do it, but it might make people.
Can we do that?
No, you can't really attach it. It either conforms as far as the three standards or it doesn't. So, I mean, so this is not an unusual situation.
okay. So they have to use our planner's advice.
So what's the hypothetical in that, Mark? Someone buys that front lot, your front lot, the 30, and it has a large house on it, which is now not conforming because the side yard line is too tight.
But moreover, if it's the 30 lot that you're really talking about, that building would stretch into the wrong lot, that would definitely come up. regardless. And the same with the 34 lot. It's I understand your point, but nothing's gonna be sold until those are gone.
The other, we just received the full package tonight. We could also just, I think we're gonna have another meeting between now and the next Monday to finalize zoning. Can we add this to the agenda for that?
We just posted it.
What about the 21 days?
Well, I think we just got a complete package with the electronic files today, so. When did we get the?
Well, we got the electronic file today. It was filed on
It
February
does say February
27th.
27 on the plan
Yes.
that we just got.
um, I think. Can we do it subject to? No, I think there's a conversation with council, provided they said they. Unorthodox, but
Yeah, I don't know what I asked.
you ask if we can put a lot line through a existing property and make a. That she's gonna say yes.
I've seen it in every town I've been in. so.
Okay. I think we have to take our planners.
Sometimes
I think we have to take our
it's a
planners'
Yeah,
advice.
You know, a shed, a barn, you know,
Okay.
dividing an old property.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask for a motion to endorse the A&R of T Ford LLC revised with let's see, dated 2/26/25, and revised such with the request that the revision that the plan be revised to change zoning district to D2 as endorsed as approval not required.
I'll make that motion.
Have a second? Sure. Any other discussion? All
I
in
had
favor?
one-
Oh, yeah.
One thing on
Yeah.
discussion, I think the intent of keeping parcel 30 here, which looks like what's to remain is the original footprint of the house, and what is behind it are additions and accretions over the
Mhm.
years. Not really in the jurisdiction, but since the applicant has brought it up, I do think that helps to contextualize the street, to leave the original house that was there, refurbish it, and then you're talking about developing in sort of a similar context on the street front to Pine Street. So although it's not part of the decision, I just think that that is a thoughtful way to preserve some of our older housing stock and renew it for another generation.
Great, thank you. Anything else? I think we can do a voice vote or hand vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you very much.
So if you get that revised plan to the planner, then we'll endorse it. Thank
I
you.
apologize for the absolute confusing.
Okay, we have a lot on our plates tonight, thank you. The next business is the review and appointment of members to the design review committee for the 3A zoning. And also just to let people know that the Attorney General did approve our zoning bylaw. DOHLC still needs to review and approve it, but it is now in force. And one of the pieces of that was to have a design review committee. We had two applicants, Gary Gilbert and Chuck Weisner, both of whom, just,
Sure, both of them helped us create the design standards for the BTA zoning district. They both are very thoughtful, design professionals. And I think together they will probably be very helpful to to us and to any developer who's proposing changes, including in fact the ones
Yep.
we just approved with or endorsed with the A&R.
We did not have any others, so that said, any, discussion?
We also need one member of the planning.
Right, we'll do these two first, and then
Okay,
I'll do the
okay.
member of the planning board.
Two good candidates.
Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
two good candidates. That's right.
so I'll take a motion to approve, Chuck Wisner and Gary Gilbert for the design review.
I'll make that
committee.
motion.
I'll second.
Oh, sorry.
Sue seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Thank you. And then we need a member of the planning board to join the design review committee. And I'm hoping that Gordon Brewster will be willing to do that.
Yes, I'll be happy
Okay.
to.
Any other nominations? Anybody want to join? So I'll take a motion to appoint Gordon Brewster to the Design Standards Review
I
Committee.
can't vote for myself.
So
Yes, you can.
moved.
So moved. All in favor? All right, unanimous, thank you. We do have two public hearings scheduled tonight at the same time. So the first is 206 Summer Street, actually for 208 Summer Street. So I'm going to open the public hearing submitted by 206 Summer Street LLC for a special permit at 208 Summer Street. The project requires topographic changes that trigger 6.4.2.4. So I'll take a motion to open the hearing. Sue Filbert, can I get a motion?
Yes, so moved.
And Gordon is
I'll second it.
a roll call vote, Sue?
Yes.
Gordon?
Yes.
Sarah votes yes,
Yes.
and Laura votes yes. Here is here, Peter's not here. Okay, okay, so, did you join,
Yes, I'm good. I can
Tom? Are you, tell me your name again.
Tom.
So you want me to give you host? Okay. Great.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Tom Sachs. I'm an engineer with Hancock Associates. With me tonight is Tim Curtis. He's a senior architect with Arthur Neal, and we represent Mr. Tim Hoff. And I should be able to share my screen. Cool. All right, awesome. So like you mentioned, special permit application for earthwork. The scope of this project is a single family dwelling at the top of this hillside. We have a proposed driveway that meets fire department regulations and criteria. In this design, we are proposing a hammerhead carport with impervious pavers. Down below is a common drive that provides access to 206 Summer Street. This clouded area has been previously approved with the planning board. We are just looking to modifications to this Lot 1 site. In this first image, I'm just highlighting basically our setback earth removal in the setback area in the interior area. So in orange here, you can see we have where we're doing all of our grading. And then in the pink area is the interior area where we have all the grading and the earthwork being done. Other aspects of the special permit is we do have a high point. So we do have a 14-foot cut located right here where this red dot is. Other aspects of the special permit is we are removing approximately, it's 140 square feet of ledge to be removed where the carport is located. All right. Regarding this project, in our last meeting, we discussed some comments from the planning board regarding the retaining walls, the driveway design, and the building location. In this presentation, I just have a few of the alternatives we've gone through with conservation. And we'll start off with the first one. So this is the previous design that has been approved by the planning board. This was back in August of 2022. So here we have the common drive. It's just looping around the other side of the septic. Here we have our carport, and then this is the proposed dwelling. So this, our client bought this lot, and this is how it was permitted.
If I may, how does the building site relate to where you're currently planning it?
So if I go back one, a little bit hard to see, but I have it actually dashed.
Getting to government was worth the backlash to his thing.
Not very easy.
That's okay, if it's, I don't want to destroy your.
So yeah, we're relatively in this location. So this building's right up against the vernal pool. Previously approved building is up against the vernal pool. In our new design, we're pulling away from that, and you'll see some of our revisions with conservation. But here's your vernal pool buffer. So really, conservation didn't want any type of impervious through that, in that area. Just highlighting some issues with this approved plan. In this corner here, we have 70, our grade line here. Well, existing grade right in this corner is about 88. So you're looking around, say you make up a foot there, you're looking at a 17-foot retaining wall that will go across the back of the property. So retaining wall here, 17 feet. It's a little bit better here. We have about a 4-foot tall wall. But as we extend down the driveway, grade here is about, this is 70, so that's a 10-foot wall right there. Even right here, we're at the end of the retaining wall, we have about, I think that's 66, and that's 58 there, so we're still looking at an 8-foot tall wall. So realistically, this wall is going to extend down the driveway.
But that's not what you're proposing to do.
No, this is just an alternative that has already been
Our
approved.
jurisdiction was really the common part of the driveway. Okay. So why don't you show us what you're actually proposing to do?
Very well. Yep. I do want to highlight one thing is when our client purchased this lot, the earthwork was very substantial, and by redesigning the driveway, we're looking to reduce that. And just along the way, we went through conservation. We originally had the driveway in the flatter area on site, and we had issues with the vernal pool buffer. So we moved that along. We started pulling out of the vernal pool buffer. This was another meeting with conservation. We still have 12-foot tall retaining walls in the back. Yeah, the grading up here is okay, but this is all retaining wall. So in order to reduce the retaining wall, we start shifting our site to what it is today. Well, what we're proposing today. For what we're proposing today is going to be 4-foot tall retaining wall in the back, a turf mat, which allows us 1-to-1 slope, so it's a slope stability mat. You can see those in blue here and in the front of the property. This is also a 4-foot tall retaining wall. We do have a lot of grading just to make up for the steepness of the hill. But we are proposing to do plantings at the end of the project. Other things to highlight are the permeable pavers in the front and the back, so we kept those. In our last meeting, we had a lot of discussions about the amount of plantings that seemed to be an issue. So through conservation, we created a planting table, and it's just a bunch of native species that we're looking to plant in these areas. So just this table is replicated in this area. This is the resource area with conservation that they requested these plantings. So our client is looking to kind of replace what has been removed and add more specifically. So this is just the restoration area. And those are just images of the plantings. So I think there's a total of 6 large trees, and then there's, I think, 5 small trees, service berries, and then there's a bunch of miscellaneous plantings and for filler, it's going to be the ferns. So that will fill in all these gaps. Also proposed is we're offering plantings outside the resource area. So this is the upland area, pretty similar to the restoration area. We're about 6 trees scattered throughout the site, but we are looking to get a landscape architect at some point to do a full design for us. During our site walk, one of the comments was the retaining wall by the septic system. Talking with our client, he is open to a stone veneer retaining wall or a modular block wall. The stone veneer would be a poured-in-place retaining wall, and then you would just add the stone veneer. So we couldn't look for input on that if there's something that's preferred. The other option is modular block. We're looking for separation between the wall and the septic system. Modular block does help with that as well. And I believe that is it. So that's the full site plan. Any questions, comments?
I do just, if you wouldn't mind, just defining how high those walls are and where they are.
Right here, these walls.
Yeah,
So that's our start.
I'm looking for your cursor, to tell you the truth.
Oh yeah, it's not very big. See that better? Yellow.
Move it around. Oh, there it is. Yeah, I see it.
Yeah, yellow. So that's a 4-foot height right there. And then we're using the turf reinforcement mats to build up the grade in front of the wall to get it under 4 feet.
So it's slightly high, and then long, steep slope down.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll have a toe slope, but we're looking to use those reinforcement mats. We've gone through so many revisions that the heights of the walls have gotten crazy at some point, so we're trying to reduce those a lot. And then the same with the back. So right here you had 88, starting and then grade from 88 to 92 here. So there's your 4-foot wall, and then that continues to this corner here, and then it goes back into 88. So 4 feet along that, turf reinforcement along the back here.
So can I just clarify, it's a 4-foot wall on top of the 1-to-1 mat, so so it sits on top of a grade change of what, 10 feet
Yeah.
roughly?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, about 9 feet overall height.
On top of a more gentle slope from 50 to, so it starts down by the common drive at 50, and then it goes, the base of the 1-to-1 slope is what, at 62 or thereabouts?
The base, yeah, right about there.
There's 62, and then it goes up to 72 where you start the wall.
Yeah.
So in point of fact, it may be a 4 foot of block or stone, but it's sitting atop a large slope.
That could be, we can plant it, and well, I don't know to the extent of what root systems can grow on it, but it could probably sod it.
Yeah, it's right up.
And that's just all to basically bump out for the hammerhead to have a carport in front of the building.
Is there any ledge in this hillside?
All the ledge that we pulled, we do have a few areas here. I think there's some down here also. So yeah, there is ledge on site. Kind of scattered throughout. A lot of it's boulders from our site walk. We saw a lot of boulders.
Where are those boulders going?
They could be dispersed throughout the site. It's relatively an even cut and fill. So where they have to make up where they cut, they can fill with the boulders. If not, they could probably go into the back of the property.
I would think the more exposed rock you could show, the more natural it might look.
More, you want more rock?
That's my personal
Yeah,
opinion.
no, I agree, definitely.
Okay, other presentation pieces, and then I'm sure we have some questions.
Nope, that's it for me.
Okay.
I just
Yeah,
wanted,
other
the
questions?
retaining wall along the roadway is, you don't have a retaining wall along the roadway, correct?
It's just the common drive.
Yeah, it's just a common drive, no retaining walls, no nothing. It's at the new grade, whatever the new grade is.
Yeah, there's no retaining walls down here.
Okay.
It's just this area.
Can you show us the extent of the retaining wall along the drive and talk about that height?
All right, so right here, we start at about a foot, and then at the peak, it's 10 feet, and then the slope climbs up on the side, so it goes back down to grade again. Well, up to grade again.
Where is that, Laurel? Where are you talking about?
You look at his along the road, along.
It's highlighted on the.
This road seems to be,
Right here.
So your high point.
Oh,
is right
yeah.
here.
So it's, as you go up the driveway, it slopes down,
It's gonna gradually get smaller and smaller as you catch the grade.
but I'm sorry, as you go up the driveway, will the wall be above me or below me?
It'll be above you, because it's built up for the septic system.
above you for a short distance, or,
Well, for 10 feet high?
Yeah, 10 feet at the max, and then as you go up the driveway, it
yeah,
goes,
right here.
it decreases by 15%. And with this retaining wall, we're definitely open to options. You guys have any specific products you guys like in town? We see that it's a good ways off the main road, but if there's an option that the town likes, we would be interested in hearing it.
Are you gonna treat that wall surface with some sort of an aesthetic?
So the options we were looking at were, so originally we were proposing modular blocks, so it's a granite face textured block. You see these two here. But we know that there's a lot of stone veneer in town, so we thought it'd be, if you wanted a stone veneer option, it would be a form in place wall, and then they would add the veneer after.
To be just placed on that?
Exactly, yeah. So the stones would be just placed there, they're flat.
And can you talk about this element along the drive, the inside of the curve? Is that stormwater treatment and detention, or what is that?
Yeah, so we're adding a lot of impervious with the site, so we're basically capturing the runoff from the driveway. So it's a 2 foot wide, or it should actually be a 3 foot wide trench drain.
It's a trench drain along the drive, but you're not grading to it, you're just grading, you're just sheeting down the
Yeah,
driveway.
there's a 2% cross slope. So right here. So it's an infiltration trench, not trench drain, infiltration trench. So 3 by 2 crushed stone, basically 1 inch of rainfall over the surface of the driveway. We sized that system for.
So what's gonna happen in larger storms? Where's that stormwater gonna go? You get a lot of peak grades and along
Yeah.
the driveway.
So naturally, the stormwater just goes down the hillside. So we built to the maximum extent practicable for a single-family home. So we just basically did 1 inch of rainfall over the whole system. The site is a lot of boulders and it's a steep pitch, so it just naturally runs off anyways. We think we're just mitigating for the impervious.
But I don't see how you've mitigated for that much impervious when you're talking about just a 1 inch rainstorm. That's a very small
Yeah.
rainstorm.
Yeah.
So what do you do? How do you design to a larger storm and mitigating?
If you wanted to design for a 100-year storm, you could put a chamber system in. With the restrictions for the site, though, we could barely find anywhere for septic. So that would require maybe another bump out or more of a built-up area if we wanted to capture more. But for this, it's a tough site, and we thought that would be best just to slow down the water coming down the driveway, infiltrate. We had decent perk rates, and mitigate for what we can.
Will this trigger a stormwater permit?
I don't know the answer.
It's a lot of land
A lot
disturbance.
of
Is it an
impervious.
acre? Yeah.
So the stormwater regs are now under the DPW, but this does, the fact that it's hard to do is not the criteria, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's to the maximum extent practicable, so it's 1 inch over the impervious area. We just referenced the Mass Stormwater Handbook.
Well, I don't think that's our jurisdiction necessarily, except to point it out. I think the cut and fill and the is our jurisdiction. So other comments from the board now? Questions, clarifying questions?
I have a question, but I'm not sure it's relevant to
Go
what we
ahead.
need to do. So the leaching field, it's a leaching field, correct?
Yes, yeah.
At the bottom of the slope where all the water is draining down to.
Mhm.
That's the most favorable condition to have your entire front lawn draining right down to the
Yeah.
leaching field.
Yeah. So it does. So for around the system, we are proposing an impervious liner. So that's for any type of gray water going into the system. Typically for septic systems, you want a 2% slope across the top, over the top of the system. In this case, we have it, the water screaming downhill and then a 2% cross slope over the top of the system.
Is it a mounded system?
Yeah, it's mounted, yeah.
Hmm.
So we had to build up, in this case, to get our separation of groundwater.
Wow. I don't know if I have an opinion, but
The question, I have a question about the alternatives for the retaining walls. You have a 10-foot high retaining wall on the left side of the driveway coming up from the driveway. And then you have a 4-foot high retaining wall on top of a 10-foot steep grade, on top of another 10-foot more sloping grade. Can you, you know, think about alternatives that are more natural materials of, more of a stone wall.
organic,
Yeah, more organic kind of.
like it should be there.
So for us, we were proposing the 1-to-1 slope. So that's earth. So that's what we thought would be the best alternative to that. We could look into boulder wall. It just requires a lot more width to it. It's not like it's a modular block where you could stack them on top of each other. Boulder walls typically require a lot more width. With the 2-to-1 slope, it could be more difficult just to stack walls. You maybe could be 10, 15 feet thick.
Okay, I'm gonna say that I'm very much opposed to the stacked bluff wall. The aesthetic, I think that that's inconsistent with the other house, and you do see it from Summer Street, you look right at it, both these walls, and they're inconsistent with the, and with the aesthetic along Summer Street, and that is one of the things that is our criteria. So, to me, the block wall is not
Would you put up a
consistent.
picture of the walls with the facing options on
Yeah.
a
So we proposed the stone veneer, which is a poured-in-place wall where you would add the stones after, and it sounds like we don't like the modular block wall, which is fine, but we would need some type of retaining wall.
And that's the lower left-hand corner that you're referring to?
So the right side are the modular blocks, which we don't like.
No.
So these are all stone veneer. So it would just be a poured-in-place wall, and they would add the rocks after.
So the poured concrete would be your retaining wall structure, and this is just a
Exactly.
veneer
The
aesthetic.
veneer is simply aesthetics.
It's a tough site. No question, it's a tough
You're
site.
gonna see a lot more tough sites because
What?
it's not, you're gonna see a lot more tough sites because
Which
there's
is why-
not very many, very few good sites developed.
And for what it's worth, like, this is what we were given. This is what's been approved. It's retaining walls all up the side of the hill. We're just trying to reduce. We don't want 10-foot retaining walls down the side. My client doesn't. It won't be aesthetically pleasing. It's a lot more work that needs to be done. So that's why we're proposing what we have today.
I just have one more question. Is the intent to let this grow natural and wild? It's not going to be a manicured lawn, correct?
No. So we do have this upland area here bubbled. So it's a lot of this green area, kind of more towards the front. This is probably
Where
going to be
are you
backyard.
pointing right now?
Oh yeah, this is. So this back area here is probably going to be grass. This is going to be the backyard area.
Okay.
But the green to the left is, we talked with conservation and we proposed a planting plan. And our goal is basically just to fill this area with ferns, with goldenrod. I have a bunch of larger trees shown, but you can only fill in so much with just trees. So it'd be goldenrod, like I said, ferns. So it all fills in as it's an area calc that the wetlands used. If you guys think we need more, we can always add more. But we are looking to naturalize this area again, this hillside. The backyard, it's gonna be a backyard. So the kids need to play somewhere, but the front is definitely gonna be naturalized. That's what that slope, you can't do anything with it. So that's the only thing to do with it.
Ask a question about that. In terms of the vegetation plan, the grading on this entire site is very engineered feeling. There's nothing natural about it. And if we use stone or we use block, it's going to be very engineered looking. So ferns and goldenrod are not going to do anything to hide that topography or hold it in place much, frankly. So I think you really need to be looking at a much more dense woodland planting of native species, trees, mid-story, understory.
Yeah.
Repair that site much, much more than you've got there right now. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's just not going to do it.
Yeah, we can definitely look into a planting plan, like an order of conditions, something like that, where we can provide more natural species to like the extent that you guys want. But this is definitely going to be an area that needs to be naturalized. It's not good. It's
When
the
are
2
we
to 1
going to
slope.
see the planting plan by a landscape architect? No disrespect to the civil engineer, but that's not what you all do.
So yeah, I did a pretty good job, but we did have only 2 weeks, so we are looking to get a landscape architect involved. I know Tim has a few contacts in his area, so but our client is definitely looking to get a landscape architect involved. But our goal is we need to start doing the site work. We need to get the ball rolling. We can do all the landscaping afterwards, because that's not going to be until end of this year, early next year.
Right, but you're in here for approval of a permit. And so we're trying to make a decision based on the complete information, which for me, I don't see that there. And I'm concerned about the extent of fill and the kind of engineered condition of the site that you're leaving it in, and to go on a few, 3 pines and something else and a discussion of goldenrod and ferns. It's like, I just don't think that that's really going to repair the
Yeah.
systems of the site, and so I'm interested to hear more from you about that. I also wanted to know, from the last time you were here, did anything change on the plan? You walked us through your earlier concepts, so you gave us some more context about that, but.
Yeah, so we went through conservation 3 times.
Can I just, hold on,
Yeah.
what happened there?
I'm not sure, it said that the host man.
I didn't catch it.
Maybe there was already a set end time on it when it was created, and because of the time change, I'm
I
wondering.
set it for 3 till 10 o'clock tonight.
Just the usual, right?
Because today I actually.
Is there a
I
way
did
to
the
go
Zoom
back in and
last
just
week.
hit start
I'm trying,
again?
I'm trying.
I think it should allow you to.
Somebody else can record.
Got a front row seat.
It's hard to see.
The host has another meeting in progress, so somebody else grab the meeting. Thing is. Communication. Sorry.
Not your fault. Strange things that happen.
I need my bookmarks.
Oh, yeah.
If I have
The other one.
Why is it not coming up? Oh, again. You know what? Hold on.
Yeah.
Nobody else is in the meeting, are they?
Yeah. Yeah. This pitch. Yeah. Yeah. There's only so much, like, when you get that intensity, it's without massive catch basin, probably get attention, but no one has room for that, especially when you live on a hill.
Let's, hold on that.
Really? Yeah.
Oh, Coastal Stream Team has it. I know how to sign in, I said my,
Do you want me to
yes,
take it for a moment?
sure.
Might be easier.
Log in,
What happened?
Yeah, go ahead and do that.
sign in. That won't get me
Yeah,
that just gets me to that. It just has another meeting in progress.
You can just put the back up.
What does the house look like?
It's gonna be shingle style.
Here, I just wanna see if you're.
Shingle style?
Shingle style, yeah.
I think it's Tuscan Villa sitting over your grapes.
Okay.
The other meeting?
There you go.
I know what that means, that theirs is,
Did that change?
Jay wanted me to
Does that change the link? We might have to close out of this.
Like, hey,
end
quick.
this meeting at that point.
but he's like, let's just Friday night.
And then we should be able to go back in.
What was that?
And restart. the-
yeah, but
Right on the left, yeah, because that's two properties, it's 206, which is the one all the way, if you keep going down the driveway, that one's there.
And we're not
Yeah,
obligated to
so
have
he's
this
building
one?
the house on the hill.
It's not
for
under
him,
the statute.
and his mom and dad are live at the bottom.
Because we had to end
Yeah.
the
That's gotta
meeting
be-
and then
that's gotta be
restart it.
state
That
law.
should get us
Yeah.
in. Let's just make sure. It might have.
yeah,
the
but now I don't have
waiting
anybody
room.
in.
It might have the waiting room again, so you
Yeah.
have to let people in again.
Meeting has ended. Yes,
No idea.
Christina Delicia's like.
I'll call on my side
Push
too.
it.
Hold on. Hi, I think we're in the same Zoom meeting. I don't know, but we have two public hearings. We're supposed to be in one too, one as well. We were in one and we got booted.
Yeah.
Try it. If you don't mind. Okay, that's not your fault. Okay, bye. All right. Well, I just called the stream team. So it's good to know who's. All right, let's see if we can do this again. All right. Then she said she kept getting booted off. Yeah.
Well,
Fine.
Okay.
All right, let's try that again.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
All right, I think
I will. I will.
All right, I think we're good.
Promising.
You can just go
That's why
through
you
it on
don't touch the
that.
screen.
Yes.
Um, okay, so. All right. We are back. Sorry about that. For people, we had,
Just 1 second. Your audio is not on because I have to be let in on this side. So if you can just, as the host, let in 1623, it will.
I think I just,
Okay. Perfect. Yep, it's coming in now. Thank you. Now your
Okay.
audio should be live in just a minute.
all right. One person.
What else can go wrong?
Okay.
Don't ask.
Okay, Christine, you have your hand raised.
I do. I'm not sure when you guys lost us, but I was trying to ask a question about the stormwater. Is it appropriate at this point? I don't know
Let's
where you
make
guys
sure-
are.
Yep, we'll get to questions in a bit on,
Okay,
we
sorry, I just missed
we
it, but I
stopped.
don't know where
Yep,
you were.
no problem. We stopped as soon as we got booted. There were 2 meetings with the same invite, but we
Yeah, okay, no
we
problem.
took charge of the meetings. Okay, sorry about that, folks. And if anybody sees people in the waiting room, I don't know, Shannon, if you're still on, if you can keep an eye on that, because I only have one screen tonight.
I still need to be let in.
Okay.
They're saying not hearing any,
What?
saying not hearing any.
I think that's a Zoom.
Oh, that's the TV, or the microphone on the TV.
Okay,
That's fine.
Christine, can you hear us? Or Sandy?
I can hear you, yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Waiting room. Keep letting in people waiting room. Just
Our AV person fills out that prompt.
and also we need to record unless you, hold on, close out what?
That prompt that says turn up volume.
Okay,
It's just during the.
yeah, can you just, one of you just where it says turn up the volume, just hit the X, please.
Yep, just hit it. No problem.
Thank you.
Well done.
And I realize we're supposed to be recording this meeting.
Recording in progress.
Okay, we're back. And we were just talking about the, what were we talking about?
I think we left off with planting plans.
Planting
My
plan.
comment, just
Okay,
asking
so
for-
Laura made the
for
plan,
more.
the point that we don't have a planting plan.
We don't
Do
have
you
a
need me
professional
to-
planting plan yet.
Yeah,
Do you
okay.
need me to put my drawing back up?
I think we have the,
I just can't get
we
it
have
in
the
meeting,
plan, that's
so.
okay. I think we have the plan.
All right. Yeah, we would definitely be open. We definitely want to get a landscape architect involved. We see it that that's very important. We need it to be aesthetically pleasing. Regarding the grading, though, the grading design was dictated by the fire department, maximum slope. So we can tweak it, but we've already done building relocations in those numerous areas I showed you. So, but we definitely want a landscape architect involved, like seeing what type of plantings, how we can fill in the naturalized area. That's very important to us. We definitely think we can do that. But we're just trying to get approval to start doing our site work.
So you're already doing some site work out there now, those huge boulders that have been excavated or blasted.
Mhm.
Was there exposed ledge?
I'm not aware of. I know there were some areas along the driveway where our survey picked up ledge. So I don't recollect if it's been moved or not. But once we realized that we were triggering this special permit, we stopped work and we got into the planning board.
I guess I'm also concerned about where these giant boulders, I mean, some of them are really quite large, are gonna end up. Like, how is that actually gonna, where are they gonna go?
So if I could make a suggestion for consideration, if you're bringing a landscape architect on board to look at planting, I think the landscape architect could also look with you at grading. I know that you're saying the fire department set the grading plan, but the fire department didn't do the grading. They just gave you the requirements that you're meeting.
Yeah.
And I do think that it's not as though you're trying to limit the grading to an area that's already disturbed. It's a very heavily disturbed site now. And so that I think that if you brought the landscape architect on early enough, they could help you massage the grading a little bit and do a planting plan and think about where the boulders might be reused so that the whole thing hangs together a little more, looks a little less engineered, and restores some natural appearing topography to the site. So that would be my suggestion to consider is don't wait and consider it like we'll figure it out at the end. I think it would really help your case if you would bring that party onto the team
Can I
now.
make amend that to say, I don't think it should be a consideration. I think it should be a condition of the approval, that a landscape architect be brought in within, what, a month,
Agreed.
6 weeks, something?
Yeah, we would love to do that.
And
Yeah.
then a plan be presented for approval by the planning board, I don't know, a month after that. So we're starting to see how the landscape architect is shaping the grading and the planting plan.
Well, I think one of the criteria for the application requirements is actually how the design features intend to integrate the proposal into the existing landscape and to preserve the same, to enhance the aesthetic and to screen objectionable features. So, well, why don't we take any public comment? We do have some other things to get done tonight. Okay, go ahead. Tell us your name and address, please.
Yes, hi, I'm Thomas Frank. I live at 195 Summer Street, which is approximately across the street from the property. Given that the property was clear cut, stripped of all vegetation, and half of its hill was ripped off of the top, I set about trying to find out a little bit about the requirements were prior to the meeting today. And I learned two things. First of all, that the applicant was dissolved by the Secretary of State in 2023, so I don't know who we're talking to this evening. And there's no Mass DEP permit in view from the street. So I was unable to find out what that permit was about, and given that there seems to be a heck of a lot of things going on with the environment, one would have thought there would be a plan on file. You know, my purpose here tonight is, I think, shared by many of the members of the board. What's it going to look like when it's all done? And it's really disturbing to me at this point. I'm not an architect, I'm not a civil engineer, but there are a lot of mature trees taken out at the curb on Summer Street, I think for no reason whatsoever. I didn't hear you discussing replacing those.
That was a
The
concept.
planting diagram all related to the view of the homeowner, not to the rest of us. I share the concerns about what this 10-foot wall might look like from the street and so on, or from surrounding high points in the area. And again, I'm not a civil engineer, but using the maximum grade allowed by the fire department of 1-to-1 seems like it's predestined to never support any vegetation on that slope. And I share your concern.
Can I comment? So the vegetation.
Let's hear from the comments, and then we can address them in their entirety. Oh,
Yep.
Okay, Christine, go ahead.
Hi, thanks. Christine Delicio, 6 Lincoln Avenue. So I just tuned in for something else, but I did have a question about the stormwater. I understand that it has gone over to DPW and that there's an application and it appears that this would trigger it. But when it was with the planning board, one of the first questions we would ask is the stormwater. So if this does need to be reevaluated, if you approve this, it's going to be almost a day late and a dollar short. So what is the procedure for getting that in prior to you approving your permit? Does that make sense? It appears that they need a DPW's permit for stormwater. And so when are you going to check that box with yours and your landscape slopings and retention ponds and whatnot? Because there isn't a butters notification involved with that application. Thank you.
I'll answer that. I don't know that we have determined that a stormwater permit is triggered or not, but that would be a question that we may want to ask. Yeah.
So so the common drive has been approved by DEP. It's under file number 039-0880. So under the previous lot, it had been approved.
That's for the common drive.
Yes.
Now, have you done any?
Stormwater.
Yeah, anything for stormwater related to the lot itself?
We just did the design for the maximum extent practicable on the infiltration trench. Whereas we're outside the buffer zones, and I don't believe we need any DEP filing.
No, but you don't need
Not
but you need a DPW for stormwater permit. You have to, I mean, I think isn't the standard that you have to, your post-construction has to be, not exceed your pre-construction rates and.
For a single family dwelling, you don't have, technically, no, it doesn't.
Well, the only thing is that what you need to do is check with the Public Works Department. The town did recently adopt a new stormwater bylaw. And so it's administrative review by Public Works. You need to make sure that what you're proposing is consistent with what they can approve. And that you trip. I'm not certain whether you actually trip something needing their approval, but you should check before, this approval would be, let's say, finalized.
Yeah, single family dwellings by the Mass Stormwater Handbook are exempt, but I'm not sure about the local bylaw.
That's
We discussed at the last town meeting.
So that's what you need to check was do you trip our local bylaw?
Was this added in the last town meeting?
Yes. Yes, it
So
was.
this is.
And I'm not
This has been
familiar with
filed
it
for a month or two?
because it was, and it was just approved by the AGs this week. So it was, so it was done by Public Works, so you need to check with them.
Okay.
Check, whether you need to, maybe you don't.
Yeah, we can check with them.
Because it might
That's
be
understood.
somewhat consistent with the state stormwater bylaw. So.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest that we continue this. I think we have some outstanding questions. We don't know, we need to have you talk to DPW as well.
Yep.
And see if we have need a stormwater permit and then I think that Laura's suggesting that we have a landscape architect try to soften this up a little bit and to come up with a planting plan that's appropriate for these steep slopes.
Planting and a grading plan.
Working with
a civil
So a
engineer.
planting plan seems like we could condition a special permit on that, but if it's gonna change the grading plan, then that the other possibility on this, I know it's I know what you want, but we do have the provision to, given the complexity here, we can hire a third party at your expense to review and this. I assume that you don't want to do that, but that is certainly an option. I mean, this is a tough site, so a couple heads might be better than one. And I think, speaking for myself, at the very least, I want to see the cement, the wall with the stones on top of it. But I'd also like to think about whether some of those walls could also be a more natural stone wall kind of.
I'd like to add to the wall material choice a refined grading plan and a professional planting plan.
So,
Can we continue
yeah,
the,
let's, we'd like,
I think there's another comment from.
oh, thank you.
Online as well.
Yep, thank you. Are there any more comments online?
You're saying you can't unmute.
Anybody else? Anybody else in the room? Okay, I'm gonna ask the applicant to continue this to our next meeting, which I believe is March 4th.
Is it Tim?
Yeah.
Our client would like to speak, is that?
Yes, go
It
ahead.
should be, I think he's online trying to, he said he couldn't unmute himself
Oh,
from.
which one is he? JB?
If you even click participants at the bottom.
Should be able to unmute yourself. I'm sorry, his name is,
I don't know what it's showing up as on the screen.
Yeah.
His name. Can you view more participants?
Hi, sorry,
Okay.
can you all hear me now?
yes,
Hi, my name is Tim Huff, I'm a property owner. I just wanted to say a few words. So I'd like to talk about like a conditional approval or have that considered if possible, because I have a little bit of a time crunch given the fact that I have 4 school-aged children, and I'm trying to get, moved into the home in time for them to attend school at the very beginning of the 2026-2027 school year. So in order to do that, I was really hoping to, get a conditional approval so that we could get going on the site work and kind of continue that, and then revisit, some of the landscape architect. And I'm more than happy to, return to the board in a month or 2 months or whatever is deemed a reasonable amount of time with a, a well thought out plan, because it is my intention to live there with my family. So I don't want to have something that is an eyesore or is bothersome to the neighbors or anything like that. My intention is to be, a part of the community for the foreseeable future once I move in.
well,
So I just wanted to kind of toss that out there.
yeah, I think we can appreciate your time constraints, but I think my sense is that the board needs to see some more details here, know whether you're going to need a stormwater permit, and rest assured that it's being addressed, and that that we need to be able to understand the plantings on this site a little bit more. So I think if you come back with a more specific plan in 2 weeks with planting plan and clarity on the stormwater, we may be able to do a conditional permit. But I don't think we're
And the
prepared to do
grading,
that
you're
tonight.
thinking that
We
grading,
think that grading.
I
Really put your
echo
heads
exactly
together.
what Laura said, that needs to be less engineered look.
Yeah.
May I ask a question? What is your schedule as far as what are you doing right now and what do you need to proceed on?
Well, honestly, I think it was maybe 3 months ago, we ceased site work when, it came to my attention that we were going to need the special permit, at which time we, started to engage with the planning board in order to, be in front of you guys, so that we could hopefully get the approval. So we haven't done anything for, probably about 3 months. Call it middle of December. So in order to hopefully have an occupancy permit in say, early August of 2026, we probably need to start, building in May of this year, which would mean a foundation in like late April. And there's probably about my site contractor estimated about 4 weeks worth of site work to be done in order to sort of stay kind of be able to keep that schedule. So that's why I was hoping to get kind of a conditional approval this evening, and then happy to revisit in 2 weeks or 4 weeks with a much more well thought out and thoughtful plan from a landscape architect, because like I said, I have every intention of living there and I want it to look good, both for myself and also to be a good neighbor.
Okay. Well, I think we appreciate that, and I think look forward to having you in the community, but I don't think we're prepared to do this tonight. Does anybody disagree with me? I think I'm getting a consensus that we want to see you back here in 2 weeks with some of these questions answered. Thank you. All right, I'm going to make a motion to continue the public hearing to March 24th at a time. Do we just set a set time? Let's make it 7, because then we can take business in advance. Do you have a motion?
Don't move.
Second, all in favor? Okay, continuing public hearing till the 24th. Okay, thank you. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Great. Okay, at this point, I'm going to thank you. Open the public hearing for zoning changes for 3 matters: accessory dwelling units, standard accessory dwelling units, large, and associate planning board members. We're going to have a public hearing, and we will have a second public hearing on any of these for a couple of reasons. One is we have to, some of the matters we want to talk about and hear from the public, and then post a hearing. All right, I'm gonna mute.
Dave?
And sorry. So all of the matters that we talk about tonight, we'll actually have a public hearing as well when we have the final versions. But we wanted to give the public an opportunity to weigh in on these proposed zoning changes that we're proposing for town meeting. There is a time crunch for getting the final versions to the select board for the warrant. And we've posted a meeting for Wednesday at 7 p.m. to finalize the version. So what I envision tonight is that we will talk about these, Mark will revise them, and then we'll vote on them to take them to the warrant on the 17th, and then we'll hold a public hearing. And if the public hearing, we can always make changes, amend them on the floor, other kinds of things for that. Cindy?
Yes, thank you. Do I have to say my name?
Yes.
Sandy Rogers.
Now, let me open the public hearing, sorry. So I'm going to open the public hearing. Let's have a motion first to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Sue Felberg,
Yes.
Gordon, Sarah, yes.
Chris, yes.
Florida. Okay, thank you.
Sandy Rogers, 82 Old Essex Road. I just have a question. Seeing we had the technical difficulties and people were kicked off, and it was advertised that the meeting was at 6:30 for the public meeting today, I'm concerned that not everyone is going to have a chance to attend today's meeting to weigh in what you are evaluating. So I'm very concerned about that as an issue. I know you say you're having a public meeting, but that's going to be after you're determining.
Okay, so noted. We did have technical difficulties. That is why we will have another public hearing that hopefully won't have technical difficulties. This is one of the challenges. So there will be a public hearing, and there'll be opportunities tonight and Wednesday night for people to give input. So with that, I'm going to start off by just sharing screen here to sort of summarize what we do. So we're going to have a hearing on 3 issues: associate members, standard accessory dwelling units, large accessory dwelling units. Then we're going to introduce 3 or 4 other issues that we hope to bring to town meeting. So the first is the issue of associate members. So case in point, tonight we have a special permit. We have 2 members out for what reasons, and it's a busy time of year. So in order to act on a special permit, and sometimes these like self-signaling took a long time, and actually went over between an election cycle where we had one member who did not run for re-election. So in order to vote on in order to affirm a special permit, you need a supermajority, which is 5 people, and or it is constructively approved. And there are rules about who can act, how you can act if you have missed the meeting. So the proposal is to have an associate member or 2 who can act when regular members are unable or unavailable on special permits or on other matters. And the question we're interested in hearing from the public is 1 or 2 associate members, whether they would be appointed by the planning board or the select board or a joint planning board select board. and whether they should serve for 1 or 2-year terms. And this is allowed under state law. Any comments from the board? I guess we
So I
want
have one comment that
Yes.
the Board of Appeals already has an associate member
that are appointed
appointed
by
by
the
the select
select
board, I
board,
believe.
as is the zoning board.
Yes.
Yes, okay. So in this case, I think we would like to hear from the public on the, sorry. Any comments from the public on associate members as to whether or not we would like to have 1 or 2 appointed by the planning board or the select board and for 1 or 2 years, any of those topics? Okay, I'm seeing no comments.
My hand's raised.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Christine. Sorry, I only have one strange
Again,
thing.
Christine Delizio, so as the member that did not run and was cause for a little bit of angst with the cell signaling, I do see the value in this, as I did before. And I do want to reiterate that I do believe that this is an elected position, and I do feel like the power of the planning board as an independent board should be retained, and that the appointment process should be solely through the planning board. So I am supportive of it. I think 2 years is a reasonable time. I think it takes quite a bit of time to get your feet wet. And I think start with 1 member and see how it goes. And if you need a second, you can always add it. A lot of time and a commitment. So for me, 1 person, 2 years, and it should be appointed by the planning board only. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Harris.
When there's a vacancy on the planning board, it is filled by planning board and the select board acting together.
Okay. Is that a suggestion or it's just a statement of fact?
It's a statement of fact. It is a recommendation that you continue to follow that practice.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Okay. If you're online and you have any other comments, please sing out. Okay, the board, we need to make a recommendation so Mark can finalize this. So when we go to get it to the warrant, and I'll speak to the fact that I think 2 makes sense for 2-year terms that are staggered. And I agree with Ann, appointed by the planning board and select board as other vacancies. Anybody want to argue otherwise? Go ahead, Laura.
I agree with Ann about a joint appointment. I think that's a good way to continue that model.
Well, I definitely agree on 2 members staggered for 2 years. I could go either way on the appointment issue.
Explain to me staggered.
So well, in the first year, 1 person would get a 1-year appointment and the other would get a 2-year appointment, and then
Okay.
so that they're not always, you don't always have 2 green people.
Okay.
Expiring at the same time.
Yeah.
Rolling.
I would agree with all that. And as I stated, almost as written right here, 2 select board and planning board makes a choice, and for a 2-year period.
Right.
One other idea is you could bring them on in a staggered way rather than giving a 1-year appointment. You could bring someone on 2-year appointment, wait a year, bring someone on 2-year
That
appointment.
might make sense. Yeah, probably a better way to do it. Okay, Mark, I think, Christine, you have your hand up again?
I do. I guess this isn't a vacancy, so I do see a difference in the appointing of the joint boards or the planning board. So this isn't a vacancy. This is an open position that the planning board is creating. So I do see a difference. And I don't see the need for the planning or the select board to be involved, quite honestly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Mark, I think we've given you direction to finalize that. Okay, the next topic is accessory dwelling units. So I'm going to turn that over to Sue to just sort of summarize the first part, and Chris will summarize the second. We'll take comments on both of them together.
So just everyone's probably in a different place on being up to speed on why we're doing this. Why we're doing this is because the state passed another law. This one they passed last year, and it went into effect in February of this year, which requires that every city and town across the state allow accessory dwelling units, townwide, citywide, statewide, in every zoning district that allows single-family zoning. Now, we currently have some bylaws dealing with ADUs. We've been trying to change them anyway, but they're completely ineffectual right now. And so we're left with the state permissible ADUs without any guardrails around them. The regulations that accompany the law do allow for some guardrails. We would like to pass a zoning bylaw that incorporates as much of the guardrails as we can, so that we're catching up with the state law again. So what we're proposing are actually two separate ADU bylaws. The first will deal directly with the state law that I just described, and we're calling it ADU standard. That deals with, right now, if someone owns a piece of property in Manchester in a single family zoning district, if they get a building permit and, satisfies building codes and other applicable laws and regulations, they can go ahead and build an ADU that is 900 square feet or less, depending on the dimensions of the single-family home that's already on the property. So the first accessory dwelling unit standard deals with that. So we are permitted to add a requirement that we can require one parking space, but not within the half-mile radius of the MBTA zoning, the MBTA commuter station again, but beyond that, for every single-family district, which is every district in town except for the LCD. We can require one parking space per ADU. We'd like to do that. We'd like to include that in the bylaw. Right now, there are no requirements, no parking restrictions. The second thing we'd like to do is we are allowed to either restrict or prohibit short-term rental in the ADUs. We would like to do that. We would like the public's input. We think a prohibition on short-term rentals is the right way to go for Manchester for ADUs, but we'd like to hear what our residents think. And again, we're just dealing at this point with the ADUs that are required, the standard ADUs. We are allowed to include site plan review. We'd like to do that. We can have dimensional standards that are consistent with what would be applicable to the residence that is already on the lot. We'd like to do that. And we'd like to include a requirement that only one ADU be permitted per lot. So, have I missed anything? That's a summary of what is in the bylaw that we're proposing that is called ADU standard. And when we take it to town meeting, it is a simple majority vote, since it deals with multifamily housing, an ADU plus another structure on the lot.
Okay, so now I'm going to turn it to Chris just to explain the large accessory dwelling unit. So accessory dwelling unit is large.
Okay, so a standard accessory dwelling unit is allowed by right in the state, anywhere in the state that's a single-family residential district. And that includes the general district as well, so everywhere in town except, as Sue said, the LCD. But they are limited to 900 square feet, and 900 square feet is sort of a typical two-bedroom apartment on one floor. There may be situations where 900 square feet just isn't appropriate. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Let's say I own a garage in my backyard And on the second floor, I'd like to put an accessory dwelling unit, but it's 950 square feet. Well, I couldn't do it unless it were designated a large accessory dwelling unit. Now, to get approval for a large accessory dwelling unit, you need a special permit from the zoning board of appeals. So they're not by right, but they are allowed with a special permit. Another example might be, I have a house and I'd like to divide into two, have an accessory dwelling unit within the house. But a natural dividing line within the house might result in the second unit being 1,000 square feet. I have a 3,000 square foot house. 1,000 feet of it would be a perfect place for my mother-in-law to live, but I couldn't do it without a special permit. You can't do it under the standard ADU law. A third possibility is the proposed occupant of the accessory dwelling unit may have some special needs. They may have handicap problems, they need a handicap bath, they have to be on a single floor. Who knows? Maybe they need a little bit more than 900 square feet also. So we've been talking about what the size restrictions would be. A standard ADU cannot be more than half the size of a unit of an existing primary residence. We think probably a large ADU shouldn't be more than half the size of the primary residence as well. And then the question is there some threshold? What's the maximum they could be? Well, we've thrown out 1,500 square feet, but maybe people would prefer somewhat smaller, 1,200 square feet. What we're really looking for is a safety valve to allow people to do ADUs that are slightly larger than what's allowed by right under the state law. Now, with a special permit, we can attach all kinds of conditions to it, as we are doing with the this project on Summer Street that we talked about earlier. Of course, any ADU, whether or not it's with a special permit, has to meet all the requirements of the rest of the zoning bylaw. So the dimensional requirements of the district. If it's in a historic district, they have to comply with that. If it's in a water resource protection area, they'll have to comply with that. So this is not trying to get around any other provisions of our bylaw. It's just allowing people to create small residential units on their property. And the large accessory dwelling unit is just a way to allow a slightly bigger than 900 square feet.
Okay. And then all of the ADUs, as we've currently, both the small and the standard, have a set of conditions. And I've added here in, one on a lot we've been advised. The reason I haven't read second standard ADUs requires a special permit is because that's on advice of council. We just got advice from council today. So I tried to. So the large ADU shall not be permitted on two family or multifamily properties. What we believe is that the standard ADUs are actually permitted on a two-family property by the state regulation. That we would prohibit short-term rentals and leases of less than 6 months in borders, and council had a little bit of question about whether we could limit leases less than 6 months and borders in the standard ADUs. That they should comply with the floodplains, water resource protection, historic district. That water and sewer utilities shall not be separated from the primary unit, and that was advice from the DPW. We can't limit the standard ADUs in terms of their ability to be titled differently than the primary unit, but we certainly can with large. And all additions for ADUs need to comply with lot coverage and primary building setbacks. We have that they're constructed on a permanent foundation, so they're not mobile homes type things. Shall use existing driveway, and that the application process includes floor plans, elevations, and engineering plans. And as I sort of put this together and thought about it, one of the advantages of having a large ADU distinct from the standard is the second it's 901 square feet, it gives the ZBA, that's the granting authority, a significant increased oversight. So that I think is a reason, if we think the market wants 905 square feet rather than 900 or something slightly larger, then by allowing them in a parallel regulation, it gives us a significantly more oversight. And we proposed 2 parking spaces for the large ADUs, at least in the current draft. And I think this last thing is a table that tries to summarize the highlights of the two types. The standard ADUs are allowed by right, 900 square feet or half dwelling. In any residential districts, that excludes the LCD. Can regulate it in the way shown here. No short-term rentals, separate entrance. Separate entrance, the same entrance should be. Oh, separate entrance meaning front door, and then the same driveway. And parking as 1 space for the standard, except near the transit station, and large 2 spaces. All of these things can be, we're here to hear input on these issues. Why don't we take comments from the public? Christine, go ahead.
Hi, again, Christine Delizio, 6 Lincoln Ave. So, half a dwelling unit could be actually huge. I mean, there's a lot of quite large homes in Manchester, so you can get up to an ADU of close to 2,000 square feet. That's another home, right? So
it would be whichever is smaller.
Well, it doesn't actually say that.
Well, in the proposed regulations, it does say that.
Okay, and so according to these, is the recent bylaws that were changed, everything can be waived? I mean, is there exceptions for things like this, that it can't be waived, or can you waive 901?
I think the special permits have a provision that certain provisions can be waived in a special permit if the permitting authority thinks that there's a good reason. So I think that the special permit, as we have currently drafted them, the special permit rules apply.
So 901 could be waived. So your description of it being, more oversight may not necessarily be true. Is that true?
I don't think that's fair. I disagree with that, but we probably will agree to disagree on that.
But it's not a trigger. That 901 could be waived is the point, right? It's not.
No, 901 square feet would require a special permit.
And it could not be waived?
Correct.
Cannot be waived.
No, correct.
Okay, great, thanks.
Other comments? Sandy?
Sandy Rogers, 82 Old Essex Road. Is this intending to eliminate the existing bylaw? You're nodding your head. Many ADU bylaws across the state have a lot more details regarding what the ADU structure would be like, regarding design standards, whether there needs to be occupancy of owner in the residence, other than a separate entrance. I know that even this board has spoken about locations of the entrance. And if you start looking at a lot of the other, intentions of the ADU from the state, they do want the ability to, or mandating separate utilities for the ADU. I don't know about the water and sewer, that might be separate than electrical, gas, etc. So I think that needs to be considered and written in. So I think it would be helpful for the public to see these written out, all the details. I don't know where that is, of how everything is actually added. You might be presenting a summary and you have all these details. I don't want to assume anything. So it would be good to see that. Secondly, I know that we have to pass something for the state. and this is just, weighing in my opinion, we just passed the MBTA zoning. We are mandated to ensure that we're allowing for this 900 square foot ADU. I think we should put a pause on the larger one and make sure that all the details are written in to what we're allowing through special permit. And it might, there might be more debate about the size of it. My house is smaller than this. A lot of houses are smaller than this. And so if it is a separate unit and it's actually existing already before this date, it could be right bumping up against other people's properties. And so there might be a lot of concerns about neighbors regarding having that as a separate ADU. So there are a lot of things to consider there. So thank you for considering that.
Can I just, a couple of your comments. Thank you for bringing up, the proposal is actually to delete the existing ADU provisions. And those are that the special permit, and you can have an employee housing in an accessory structure. And so our feeling on that one is that this 900 square foot by right kind of satisfies the intent of that. So I think seems that's pretty easy. The second existing ADU bylaw requires a double lot and that the house exists prior to 1984 and doesn't have any of those conditions that you described, but does require a special permit. For the standard ADUs, design standards, unless we currently require them for the principal dwelling, are not allowed. But we could use the design standards from the multifamily, perhaps, if we wanted, for large ADUs, perhaps. The separate entrance, I believe we're not 100% sure that we can require that. And separate utilities in the standard ADUs are not allowed to have that be, even though some towns have done that, the EOHLC has said that that is not legal. And
the other thing you brought, sorry,
go ahead.
The other thing you brought up was the owner occupied. We're not permitted to have that as a requirement for the standard ADUs. But are we for the large? Is that we are?
Yeah.
They can't be separately titled, which is maybe the more important.
Well, that means you could turn them into a condominium.
Right. So, yeah.
So again, that's a great reason why we might want to make sure a lot of the details are worked out for anything larger than the smaller.
And I believe that we have them on the website, right? The
Yes.
zoning, and they were in the meeting packet tonight, and we have
some hard copies here. Yeah.
So
Great.
there are a lot of details
Yeah.
in the proposal. We tried to summarize it for the public tonight, but those are good points that we. Other comments? Yes.
Yeah, I was just actually looking for some clarity.
Yeah, can you just-
Mason, 61 Nord Ave. So we currently have a multi-family house, two-family.
We co-own.
Yeah, owner occupied, and we have an on-site shop that we're looking to convert into an ADU. So we're kind of looking to see if that falls into this category. Or,
I think a lot of my questions were answered tonight.
yeah, most of them were.
It's 800 square feet.
900.
No,
there it
Yeah,
is.
the shop.
Oh, yours is
About
800
their
square feet?
example.
Yeah.
We have off-street parking. It was built 40 years ago, it meets all the setbacks. And so the only issue, I guess, was I thought it was just a single family, if it was a single family, but you just said that it was two family, right?
Yeah, it's in single family districts,
Right.
and the building inspector and council have said that, and the hearing that we went to, is that, so I believe that you can use the existing state law. Now, the enforcement officer is the building inspector.
Yes,
So this is
right.
simply my
All
opinion.
builders been working in town. for
But that
15 years.
you, is my understanding of currently the state law is that you can have an ADU in a two-family. Provided that you, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, that's the clarification.
We spoke,
Yeah, we
Yeah.
spoke about this,
Yeah.
and at the time,
It was like a
we
little
were
some
trying
gray
to
area.
say, You can only have.
that we
single
wanted to
family.
prohibit that, but we're not permitted to.
We're not permitted to, so. So you would be able to do still one accessory on the lot beyond your current two-family, so.
And the state law, which we should add into our standard, is that if you want a second standard ADU, it's a special permit. A second 900 square foot, we need to add that in. Although the state law would also dictate that, but we should be clear about that.
We should say it's a ZBA.
Yeah. Right. So the intent is that the way we've drafted this bylaw is that it would be the ZBA that would be the special permitting authority. Does that make sense? Yes?
Sure.
We have enough things to
Yeah,
do.
we do.
Does the ZBA have an opinion on it?
I don't know, we should ask them.
No, let's not ask.
Yeah, we should ask. Yes, Sandy?
Just a question on what you said, just so I understand it. If you are a single residence, you can have only one ADU. But if you have a multifamily,
You can have one ADU.
you can have one ADU, but then you were saying a second one
Has to
would
have
be
a special permit, and I would say that.
And that is, why would you not do that for a single family?
You could.
Yeah.
You could have two the
So
second
then-
unit, the second unit would require a special permit, but you could. it's
And it
allowed.
doesn't mean the special permit has to be granted, I think,
That's also true.
but, and that's the state law. That's the state, the regulations of the state, the regulations specifically say that a second ADU has to can be required to have a special permit. That's why I think we need to put that in.
And one final thing I want to say about this is that the existing ADU law in Manchester has been superseded. It's gone
Yeah.
for all practical purposes. So what we're trying to do is put one in that allows us at least some regulation over it. Best we can do.
I get a question though. In our bylaw, which would, the section that applies to all ADUs, and this has not been commented, removed, is we say only one accessory dwelling unit shall be permitted on a lot. So the law says you can allow a second one by
Second
special
protected
permit,
use one.
but you don't have to.
Right.
Right.
And so the way we currently have it drafted is not. You can only do one.
All right, we should check that.
So, well,
Yeah.
she didn't
She didn't flag it.
didn't flag it as an issue, so neither did Paul. He's
Okay,
seen
so
this.
I think we should
So
move that.
I would not add
Right.
the language for
That I
the
just
second
suggested, okay.
ADU gets, can have a special permit. So I don't think it's a right that you have the right to do that. Only if allowed.
Okay, we do have copies if people want to get into the weeds a little bit on that. It seems like council raised some things that we can't do, which we just therefore have to strike, and asked some questions that had some fairly obvious answers, like historic district that is required. So I didn't see any other things that were significant that we really needed to discuss, but do people want to just take a quick?
You want me to just run through it?
Yeah, why don't we,
Very quickly.
Which one are we, this is
So
the
those
standard.
standard ADUs, so really it's down for comments that have to do with just the general requirements. So she says to take out number 2, which is the one pertaining to the two-family or multifamily properties.
Can I just back up for a second, Mark? In the past, when we've deleted sections, we have not enumerated we have not listed the whole section to be deleted.
Oh. She says that I should strike, do it.
Use a strikeout?
Do the strikeout, which I started doing.
Okay. I think that's clear. I think when you actually have it, yes, I do.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Her second comment had to do with exterior elevation plans. And shall be submitted for any application requiring an addition for a habitable space. She says, is this only for attached ADUs? That's kind of clear for any, means attached or detached, but
What number are you on? I'm sorry.
number 4 of
okay, she says-
9.13.
Yeah.
9.12.
Well, you can have a attached that is an addition to the house.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Can I make a clarification on terminology?
rsn.org. rsn.org.
Can we, for number 4, can we strike plans? You can't have an elevation and a plan in one drawing. Okay, so it's an elevation drawing.
You see. Yeah.
I want it to be not confusing for people.
Okay.
Plan is looking at the floor.
Mark, what are you reading from right now?
We're reading from
I'm
the.
looking at the lawyer's comments on
exterior
it.
That's what I am too.
Oh, you're looking at the same one I have then. Yeah. This one says accessory dwelling units shall not be permitted.
So the leasing question, she says, I don't believe you can require this, but she doesn't cite like why.
Right. So why not just leave it in, and then if the
That's
AG,
right.
if the AG wants to strike it, they can strike it.
I agree. The next comment had to do with the Historic District Commission, only if otherwise required by the HDC.
It is, so.
It is required this only says in the Historic District, so.
Yep.
Her next comment was, may want to confer with, about separation of utilities.
Chuck was adamant that the water and sewer
Yes.
utilities not be separate from the
Yep.
environment.
So we'll leave that.
He said that the reason is that it's another disruptive, it's another service, it's another, so, Anne, you had a comment?
My usual comment when we're talking about water meters is that we have very progressive water rates. And what would be low rates for 2 dwellings would be much significantly higher if they had to be joint. Now, that's money for Chuck.
If that was what he wanted.
It's the price of an ADU.
Yeah.
I think you're penalizing the person in the ADU potentially. I think you're penalizing somebody on a lot for having their grandmother live with them. I mean, I don't know. That's an interesting point.
I wouldn't call it a penalty. The person is getting the benefit by being able to rent it or use it for a family member. So if it turns out you have to pay a little more for that, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Or maybe the DPW can make an exception for people who have approved accessory dwelling units. It's a water rate problem, not a zoning problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if I may, this is Ann Harrison, 13 Tux Point Road.
Yeah.
Having the DPW compute separate rates for individual buildings
that's
is just putting a burden on the town hall. But
why don't we just circle back with Chuck and see what his rationale was, and whether there's also a possibility of having two.
Well, one of the things we did discuss was still having a single service off the main line.
2
but
meters.
Once you get past the curb stop, let's say for water, you can split it, and then they can run 2 meters for.
Yeah, that's what.
So the 2 things,
Yeah.
just like for electricity, you still have one service coming into the house. When it hits the house, that's where it splits into 2 meters. They don't run 2 lines off the.
Okay.
So I could adjust the language. as such and then leave it open on the one service that we serve each property. And it open whether they split it and put in separate meters. So for a single family home, if they're doing a single, it may not make sense to try and replumb part of the house. But if you're converting that garage in the back and you already got to run trench new water line back, maybe easier to tie it somewhere in the front and stick a meter.
Mark, one of the things that we should think a little bit about is the standard, this 9.1.2 use regulations apply to both types of ADUs. But if the Attorney General strikes it because it's part of the standard, then it puts the, and it's not listed under large, then now that whatever that criteria is, does not apply to large. So I think we should have general regulations for standard and then repeat them for large. So that, you see what I'm saying? If it gets struck from this section, then it won't be in the other one.
Right. So
That's just a formatting. I think you're going to have to just repeat them.
Really? Why can't you just say all of the regulations for a large, for a small also apply to a large,
Yes,
plus additional ones?
But the issue is if the Attorney General strikes the first one, only one accessory dwelling unit on a lot.
Well, then we can just repeat that. Just repeat that.
But it could happen in any of these.
In any of these.
Well, not any, but several.
Several
of them.
If a historic district one was struck, I don't know. Do you see what I'm saying? I just don't want to risk. Yeah. So that's just a formatting thing. You need to think about that. Okay. Lot coverage requirements and setbacks. I don't understand why she's so focused on detached.
I don't know.
So, okay. And borders, we'll leave that, we decide we're going to leave that in, but that's an example. So if that gets struck from this one, now it's not in the large.
Right.
So.
And also the 6-month lease one.
Right. But even any of them, right? Mobile homes or whatever. Okay. So I think have we given you enough guidance on this one? All right, let's and look at the next one, which is the large ADUs. Here's the KP Law comments. That's one to Sandy there.
Jeff, did you want a copy of these?
Sure.
You didn't say, I'll grab them for you.
Oh, here you go. You want one more?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Mark's pick.
You're hiding
And
over
one
there.
from Ann.
Hiding in the back.
No, it's accessory dwelling
This
units.
is exciting stuff.
Christine has her hand raised. Christine, do you have a comment on the standard ADUs as well? Christine, do you have a comment?
Sorry, I was speaking and unmuted, so yes. Christine Delisio, 6 Lincoln Ave. So in the past, the town has not really kept track of ADUs all that well. I just want to make sure that there's a mechanism because each ADU that we approve is going to increase our housing stock, increase our vulnerability to a 40B. You know, every 10 ADU gives us another unit that we have to put on the SHI. So I do think it's important for us to get a handle on how many we have. And also, I do think it's discriminatory to say that you can't have your own meter on this. I mean, if someone is using this for another unit, I mean, they should be entitled to a new water meter and a new line if that's important on that property. So I think it's discriminatory to say you can't have another service. And one final comment is, have the corrections been addressed before I know this particular new zoning change has to be added, but particularly driveway entrances, who's enforcing that? Is that being addressed hopefully in this round of bylaw changes?
We're getting to
Thank
that later in the meeting.
Great, thank you, I didn't see that.
So it seems to me that that is an interesting point about the, additional housing units. But it's not going to be part of zoning. So it's got to be at the assessor and the building inspector's department or planning.
Yeah, as far as tracking the number of new units, I mean, probably through the building department. It's not a requirement, I think, had been.
It's still in there, that we should keep a record of each ADU permit applied for, approved, denied, and issued certificate of occupancy.
That's in the state regulations.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the state does want us to keep track. So here's another thought, and I don't know how we get at this, but I think all of us know of spaces that have been renovated with a sink, refrigerator, and countertop induction unit, and that those are not considered to be accessory dwelling units under state law. Should we try to capture those as ADUs, or can we?
Well, I think
in going forward.
I think the problem is if it doesn't meet the definition of a dwelling unit, because it doesn't have a full kitchen, which is, I believe, what the standard is. So like if you just provide a microwave on top of the countertop, as opposed to putting the full stove in, it's not actually a extra unit. So again, this is something we'd have to check with Paul, but I believe that's what the standard is.
But I wonder if we could expand cooking or say cooking, if we could define cooking facilities to be that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But
So
I think the problem is the word self-contained. It's not self-contained.
self-contained housing unit.
the regulations do define dwelling unit.
Yeah.
I don't know how we could expand that for the standard.
That was going to be one of my questions, is what defines an ADU versus an apartment versus anything else? It needs to have a bathroom, it's a separate, like all of those.
Defines it as a self-contained housing unit inclusive of sleeping, cooking, and sanitary facilities on the same lot as the principal dwelling.
It's just
That's
on
the
the
state
same
law,
lot.
right?
Let's see. Yeah, a self-contained housing unit inclusive of sleeping, cooking, and sanitary facilities on the same lot as a principal dwelling. Maintains a separate entrance, either directly from the outside or through an entry hall, and size limitation, and then dwelling unit is defined as a single housing and unit providing complete independent living facilities for one or more persons, including permanent provisions for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and sanitation.
Say that a dwelling is a single? Does it say single? No, the
So-
primary dwelling is what?
The principal dwelling is a structure, regardless of whether it or the lot it is situated on conforms to zoning, including use requirements and dimensional requirements such as setbacks, bulk, and height, that contains at least one dwelling unit and is or will be located on the same lot as a protected use ADU. And then you go back to dwelling unit, which is a single housing unit providing complete independent living facilities for one or more persons, including permanent provisions for living, sleeping, eating, cooking, and sanitation.
We're all the same. So the point is one or more dwelling unit, unfortunately. Yeah.
So wouldn't that contradict a ADU inside of an existing structure? Because it's saying a separate,
entrance. So you could take your back family room and make a separate entrance, come in the back and.
but it's not, at that point, it's not a separate structure.
It doesn't have to be a separate
To
structure.
be an ADU, it doesn't have to be a separate structure, a self-contained housing unit.
Right.
So that could be your attic or your basement. And a separate entrance either directly from the outside or through an entry hall or corridor shared with the principal dwelling.
So it does not have to be an accessory building. And in fact, if you think about the character of the town, and if you think about keeping it small and affordable, arguably taking a large house and carving off, the family room or the living room that you never use and making that an accessory dwelling unit without expanding the footprint is more consistent than, adding a.
Right, I was just thinking to Sandy's point about what's an apartment
Right.
and what's an ADU.
They're the same thing.
Yeah.
So in talking with the fire chief and the building inspector, they did say that they would require a firewall between the two. They would see them as.
True firewall?
That's what he said.
Wow.
Well, it's 2 layers of,
Because it's a
2
separate
layers of
living.
plasterboard.
He would treat it as an apartment.
So the state law requires that with apartments. So, yeah, reasonable.
So.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about fire code. You have to have one entrance, but I don't know, over a certain size, do you need to have a second entrance because of fire regulations?
So if you do have over, is it 3 units, 3 or more units, you have to sprinkle.
Right.
So to their question, so let's say you have a 2-family and you want to, in that same building, add an ADU somehow. That triggers sprinkler.
Under the building code. So they make it clear that the building code applies.
And the fire department did say that they would require a sprinkler. So that is a hurdle, a big hurdle, if you have a multifamily or a 2-family. So that's separate from us. Yeah, I mean, I think, I'll speak for myself, I think this should be in single-family homes only. I made that comment to the state in the regulations, but that did not flow through. And several other people, I think you made the comment, like we made written comments. So, I'll stop sharing so I can see people. Okay, let's keep going through the large, Mark.
Okay,
I think that.
her comments are, if the standard ADU fails, what would you do with the large? And I'm assuming you'd make a motion to withdraw it, or however you word it.
Pass it over.
Yeah, pass over it, yes. So, wants me to strike through any old text. ADUs.
I do think we have to repeat that set of conditions for this, so that they stand alone.
Yeah.
It also will make it easier to modify them if we are to. What do we feel about the short-term rentals prohibition? Does anybody want to speak against that? Okay. Mark and I also talked about a standalone article that just probably just add to the table. Short-term rentals in ADUs, no, in the table. And that way, if one or both of these doesn't pass, we can have just that prohibition as a clear prohibition going forward. Okay, any other comments on those?
The one question that Sandy asked before about electric utilities services, will there be a separate meter for this ADU
We've been silent on that at this point. And the standard that it said you can't make that.
Really?
Because to your point, there was somebody who spoke at the hearing who said this is what they have done in Woburn, I think, one of the W's. They said they're requiring separate meters, they're requiring separate water, they're requiring firewall. I don't know what all they were requiring. Owner occupied, and they said these don't apply with the standard, the protected use. So it was a specific set, mostly that list that you just gave us. So the other towns have sort of tried to preempt this by putting in those. So for the large, we could require it or allow it. Right now, we're silent on that question.
Yeah, in the regulations for the standard, it says any requirement concerning utilities, safety and emergency access that is more restrictive than permitted by state requirements, including the fire code, is no good. A municipality may not require a separate utility, such as water, sewer, or electric, provided that a separate connection may be required by a municipal or regional utility, investor-owned utility, by state law, by a local, regional, state board of commission, or by court order.
Or by anything else.
Anything except the town.
Yeah, Laura.
A few comments on the large.
Yeah.
I would, and they're my usual comments. One is, I would suggest going down in size from 1,500 to 1,200. And then my regular comment, which I always make for the record, is the parking requirement should be the same for the large as it is for the small. I think we should be minimizing the footprint of these things, both in the size of the unit and the parking. If you go to 901 square feet, I think we should, someone wants 2 spaces and they can justify it, fine, but I think it has a result in the amount of paving, the reduction of vegetation, tree removal, and so forth. And so I recommend one same parking requirement for both.
Okay, but the standard doesn't require any. You can't require any within the half mile.
I would say the same.
Okay.
Same exact requirement for both.
Okay.
1 parking space, none within the half mile.
Okay. The other thing is that the 2 for the large is a half a space, whatever that is, larger than you would have if you had a 2-family. So a 2-family would be 1.5 per unit. So it seems to me we should, at the very least, make it the same as the parking table, which would be 1.5 per unit. In Manchester, the no parking spaces within a half mile of the train, I understand the intent, but in Manchester, it's pretty hard to not have a car, whether you're within a half mile of train or not. If you're gonna see a doctor, what?
Buy shoes.
Buy shoes. Right. Well, you can go to Boston to buy shoes, I guess, or Beverly on the train. But it is the frequency of the train and I would argue the reliability right now sometimes. So personally, I think we should require the large to have something.
Would that be one additional space?
Well, we can just say, large ADUs shall comply with the parking requirements of section, put in the
Section 5.
Section 5.
That's the 1.5.
Mm-hmm.
That's different one than what Laura
That's still
suggested.
more. Yes, I mean, I could compromise on the train, but I think 1 is adequate. Because if you've got a 900 or a 901 or 950 square foot unit.
So there, you're two required for a single family house, right?
Right, so you've already got 2.
So you got 2, so
adding a
you're adding
third.
an accessory dwelling unit. So that'd be 3, so that would be compliant with the law. So I agree with Laura.
So the other piece of this that concerns me is we want this to pass. Parking is always an issue that people care about. The other thing is that the regulations allow for a parking space that is either on the lot or on the street. I believe, Sue, isn't that correct?
No,
That
so-
parking space can actually be on the street for the protected use.
The protected use.
And therefore, given that you could have one of, that, let's assume that, we're gonna get 10 of these, that's 10, either potentially 10 more, potentially 6 more cars, I don't know what it is, some portion.
It says, more than one additional on-street or off-street parking space for protected use ADU. If it's within a half mile, you can't do that. Any additional on-street or off-street parking for protected use ADU if it's outside the half mile. They don't really say.
It says we can.
It's not clear. It was clearer before they changed it. So it's not clear, but yeah, I think we would want to specify off-street.
Okay, so we have 3 options. We have the 2. We have go to table 5, which is 1.5, or we have Laura's suggestion of 1.
Actually, going to table 5 makes sense because it's what we require.
Let's just get the feeling of the board on this. Other 2 or
I would do either 1 or the table.
That would be 1 as well.
1. Okay, Sandy, do you have a comment on the parking?
So I would do the minimum amount that you have to do it by the regulations for parking, especially if we're dealing with off-street parking. And then if they need another one, it would trigger a special permit, and you can evaluate whether that street can accommodate the additional off-street parking, or, they can do a little addition and, maybe extend their driveway a little bit as long as they're using the same entrance. And
It's a good suggestion. If we say 1, this might be increased by the special permit.
Well, people can put as much
We
parking
could
as
put
they
more,
want.
right? We're
Right,
just
I mean,
upping
but the special
minimum.
permit could require that they have 2.
It could,
Well,
but
to her point, if there's, it's a crowded street, or it's a 1,200 or 1,500
Right.
square foot, or the primary dwelling has very limited parking, there might be special permit conditions. We're talking about the large ADUs now. That could be.
Do we usually spell those out in advance? The potential for adding another anything,
no.
No, but I suppose it could be part of the special. Traffic is a special permit condition.
Sure.
So
Sure.
I think it could be, I think it would be incorporated into the existing special permit condition without specifying it.
Without specifying.
So I'm hearing that 1 space for the large throughout, regardless of whether it's within the train.
Yeah.
Okay. How about the size of the ADU? 1,200 square feet versus, so it'd be 901 to 1,200?
You're asking the wrong guy. I was for the 900, not for a larger one, so.
Okay, so I think we're hearing 1,200. Anybody object to the 1,200?
That's fine.
Okay, great, thank you for raising that. Any other things on the large ADU?
One question.
Yeah.
So at the end, number 5 of our special conditions is accessory dwelling unit large shall only be allowed in accessory structures existing prior to April 28th. And then comments that earlier we say accessory structures constructed after must comply with the primary building setbacks for an accessory dwelling units to be located in. One section says you can't have it, and one section says you can, as long as you meet setback.
What does that mean, that last one, about April 28th, 2025?
That's the date of the town meeting.
That's town meeting. Yeah.
So
So the idea is that some people are building a garage and then coming back and getting and putting in an accessory dwelling.
But they can build a structure. You don't need to build a garage. You just
Right.
build a structure.
I think we can take out 5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's,
Okay,
but I
thank
didn't
you.
want to take it out too.
No, good.
Yeah, good.
Okay, so I'm gonna take a motion to close the public. Oh, sorry, Ann, go ahead.
Number 6, which requires that you have a conforming lot. Is there any way that you could get a special permit if your lot was not conforming?
Oh, that's a good idea. Because your lot could be non-conforming by just a tiny amount.
Mhm. Yes. So the answer is no,
Okay.
unless we change the wording or eliminate that entirely.
I mean, you have to meet all the setback requirements and lot coverage anyway.
The lots in Area E are large.
But there are a few.
There are a lot that don't.
That aren't.
That aren't
There are a lot.
Yeah.
There are a lot that are not. The 2 acre was
Yeah.
added fairly recently.
We could say you gotta have at least a half an acre or or be conforming.
Maybe we just take it out because they have to go to the ZBA if they're
Right.
non-conforming anyway.
So what if, I mean, you could have a really big lot, but
Yeah.
have not quite enough frontage.
Right,
because
right.
It's an old lot.
Yeah.
It's skinny and.
I agree.
And so then they can't do it at all, and if they're already going to the ZBA.
Right.
They
I know
probably
it makes
also have
sense to try and
carriage
see
Yeah.
if they could
I agree.
get variance.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, if the intent is just to
Right.
not have it on all lots, I mean, you
Yeah.
could say, they have to be at least.
I wouldn't, I hear what Ann's saying, and I wouldn't start adding lot sizes, because I feel like that could be discriminatory
Yes, I
unintentionally.
The other question is, should it be in all districts? So right now we've all residential districts, the large. We have, so Mary had, so the current bylaw, the 9.1 does not include District D1 or D2.
Our current ADU.
Our current ADU bylaw.
And that's because they allow two-family,
That's because they
Anyway.
allow two-family anyway.
but a two-family could have an accessory dwelling.
Could have a 900 square foot accessory
Yeah.
dwelling unit. So,
But if there's a single family home in D, I mean, I think we should not have them in D, but are there some single family homes in D that will be then prohibited?
they can have the 900 square foot.
That's right, they can't, of course.
So Mary had suggested, that was one of her comments, was that not included in a large in D1 or D2.
Yeah. Well, and what about G?
Gee. Yeah, what about you?
General district.
Yeah.
If you're not allowing them in D1 and D2, I guess should be G also.
Go ahead.
Could we allow them, just throwing stuff out there, if everybody wants to be able to take advantage of it, and if the large is intended for an existing structure, we want to say existing structure? I'm just thinking about, like, if you live in D and you have a garage and you want to put it over the garage, and your garage has a footprint that, you're going to have to put a smaller top on an existing garage that's 901 square feet. Should we think the last time we talked about 4 existing structures only? But then I guess we're getting back to
Well,
the
that's where that
thing.
April,
Yeah,
that
doesn't really
existing
work.
structure thing
Yeah.
came in. That's
Yeah.
why.
Right.
I think that what Sarah was concerned about,
Sarah
Mellish was concerned about if setbacks have a rationale
Right.
for a primary dwelling, for a house. If setbacks have a rationale, 10 feet, and you put your garage is either existing or you build, because accessory structures can have a smaller setback. And now you put a living structure in that accessory structure.
Yeah.
If there's a basis for side setbacks or rear setbacks
Right.
to protect your neighbors from whatever, smell of
Yeah.
hamburgers, then now you've sort of subverted that setback rationale. We could argue whether that is a good rationale or not, but it has rationale. So Back to D2, D1, and general for the large.
I can go either way.
Well, the density, I mean, the whole purpose of the law is more small housing. Those areas already have a lot of dense multifamily
Right.
or not quote unquote official definition of.
Right.
They're already dense,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I feel like I would support excluding.
Yeah, I would too. Anne?
My feeling is that it would be less controversial at town meeting.
I agree.
If the large were permitted only in purely single-family residential.
It would be less controversial?
Yes.
Right, yeah.
So all the districts except D and B, then, is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's consistent with the current.
Exactly, right.
So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
we're good with that.
So,
Are you striking?
Striking D2, D1, and G.
And I'm thinking, what was the outcome on 6, the conforming lots?
I think we struck that.
Right.
I wanted to go back to that.
Okay.
That would be on all ADUs, including the by right, or the larger one?
It would actually, it's not allowed in the standard. So we can't specify that for the standard. And then it would be, we would strike it for the large. The idea being if you have a 1.5 acre, a 2 acre lot in E, but you don't have that's existed since 1900, and you don't have the right amount of frontage, then you'd be a non-conforming lot and you couldn't do this, which seems a little arbitrary.
But for the large, they still are going through special permit.
Special permit.
Right.
So you would catch if there were any major issues because it was non-conforming, because it was too close to
Yes,
the
exactly.
line or anything like that.
Right.
And you cannot do that for the smaller one.
Correct.
That's in the,
Right.
okay. Just wanted to get that understood.
No,
Thank
important
you for
distinction.
clarifying.
Thank you. Okay, at this point, I'm going to close the public hearing because we're going to talk about a couple other things, but they were not posted. So take a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Now we're going to talk about the other issues. So much. Let's see here. They're a little bit easier to understand. Okay, so floodplain bylaws. So we will be having a public hearing on all of these again. But Mark, you want to just give us an overview of the floodplain?
well, the floodplain bylaw, we're required to update the floodplain bylaw. It is something the planning board worked on and actually had reviewed by council and the state back in August 23, but I think that's when you started working on the MBTA. And so it kind of got pushed aside. Now we're under a timeline for adopting that new version, which has been amended a little bit since that time. So we have a new version of the bylaw that has been reviewed by council. They've deferred any sort of comments to the state for what we have to approve. So that was submitted to them. They'd like me to add a few definitions to the bylaw, which I did, and I resent it to Eric Carlson at the state. I haven't heard back from him, but his comments were really minor to, which I did send out, I believe. Pretty much like add a bunch of these definitions and one of the little things.
And can you just summarize for people like the general, what does the bylaw require?
So the bylaw
What does it say?
basically It requires that if you're in one of the flood zones, you have to comply with the standards for building in flood zone. And if you do any additions or new construction in those areas, and that way you can obtain flood insurance. So the bylaw.
Shannon's asking you to speak up a little bit louder.
So the bylaw is essentially the zoning where it creates the zones, and it refers to the maps. So we have to readopt, we have these floodplain maps that were created by FEMA. And so these are what we have to adopt as well. This is like creates the zoning, and there's different types of floodplain zones. And there are, I believe, 5 zones in the community, and so that's what it does.
Right, and if people are looking for the floodplain maps, here's the URL. And you click on that little blue piece that shows, and then the maps are all there electronically. You can look up an address and see if it's applicable. So basically, we are required to, and we've adopted the bylaw that is required by the state.
Yeah.
So. Okay, and I had said that there were 2 options. One is to have the flood regs in the zoning, and the other is to modify zoning to allow the floodplain regs to be adopted by the planning board. And you propose to have them in zoning. You think that's a better option? Okay. When I made this, we were not
Well,
sure.
I mean, it could be adopted as entirely a general bylaw, or it could be adopted in the zoning bylaw. It's traditionally been, at
In
least
zoning.
in this town, in zoning and many other places.
Okay, so we're going to put it in zoning.
I have a question about that.
Oh, except the only thing is that it requires 2/3. If it's in general bylaw, it's only at 50%.
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
And like stormwater, we wanted it to apply to
Good
everything.
thing, right.
This seems like a public safety issue. So shouldn't it be in the general bylaws?
And in fact, isn't part of it storage of gasoline and things in open containers isn't allowed?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that sounds more like a bylaw than a general bylaw than a zoning bylaw.
Well, but it only applies to the areas that are in the zones here. So it's kind of like a zoning, it's creating these various.
Can we just
zones.
get did town council weigh in on whether it should be zoning or general bylaw?
I think she did.
Can we ask for that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And Sarah, is that going to an upcoming town meeting? Because
It's important because people can't get flood insurance if
what
we
I was
don't pass
thinking.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's time sensitive.
Okay. Any comments on flood plain bylaw? Okay. The next one is pretty simple. We have a lengthy introduction to our bylaw, and it's out of date. And to modify it, because it is part of the zoning, requires a town meeting vote. So the proposal was simply to delete it and move it to a web page that we could keep up to date and current. So that's the proposal. My personal feeling is it's not time sensitive. If the town meeting is long and the warrant is long, we could push that off, but we have it drafted. So that's the proposal there. Any comments?
There is a lot already that the planning board is putting forth.
That's right.
So it can wait.
We could probably wait till the fall.
We should let the select board decide.
Yes. And so. Okay. And the last one is to expand the applicability of site plan review. This, I tried to paraphrase this. The current site plan review is triggered by a couple places in the bylaw, which is number 9, where otherwise required by the zoning. And by the addition of 5 parking spaces. So Mark's recommendation is that we should add some additional triggers for site plan review. that might not have a special permit. And those are construction for commercial use, changing a structure that's currently commercial, or I can't read that, over 400 square feet, and or the aggregate disturbance of a lot coverage of 1,500 square feet. Development, expansion, or change of use requiring 5 or more parking spaces, which is the current occupancy of existing structure by commercial, which increases pervious occupant load, previously approved occupant load by 10%. Change of use in existing residential structure to a commercial use, a drive-through facility, multifamily construction or renovation of 3 or more units, and alteration of more than an acre of land, or except for 1 or 2 family residential. And town council had a couple of comments on this.
Yes.
Pass that to Jeff. No? Oh, she wants to see strikeouts.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea, the
Yeah,
suggestion
it's-
to show all
yeah.
the strikeouts.
You know how to do that in Word?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Aggregate disturbance seems to me that's total. Exterior change.
Yeah, so the next one, so my only thought about the second one, a change of occupancy of existing structure occupied by commercial use, which increases the previous approved occupant load by 10%. Well, a lot of that goes to the zoning board for a change of use. So.
Might not be a change in use, though. You're just saying a change in occupancy,
Yeah.
right? So a restaurant has a 200 person occupancy and it's going to go up to 220.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know, that's, seems, 10% seems like a little,
A marginal.
yeah.
Is that what that's intended to be,
Yeah,
Sarah?
yeah.
Literally the number of people who occupy the house?
I'm reading it literally.
Yeah, if you read it literally, that would be one interpretation, or somebody, I mean, if they're adding an addition, that's covered through something else, so, I mean.
Maybe we don't need number 4.
Yeah, I think, that's what
I
I'm
think it
thinking,
seems,
it
yeah.
may be a little too, plus if it is a change of use, a lot of those go, and they're not building, I mean, the whole intent.
Right.
Primarily, I mean, this is in, something similar is in other towns, but rarely does it come forward. I mean, it does, can't say it does.
Do we want, number 5, we have a change of use of existing residential structure to a commercial use. Do we want to flip it? Why wouldn't we also want a change of use of existing commercial to residential?
Why would you put a change of use? Period.
Are there more uses than commercial and residential?
Sure, institutional,
Professional,
professional,
yeah.
So the church, so a change of use from the church on Pool Street to a residential would be a change in use, for
But
example.
that would go through other.
So that does mean that we shouldn't do site plan review, right?
Yeah, well, it would actually go through site plan if you went through the MBTA zone.
it's not an addition.
It's not in the district.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay.
So I think a change of use, period.
Change of use, period.
So Cargo Unlimited, for example, would get a site plan review.
How about with a site, I mean, if there's a change of use
Use
of
of-
500 square feet, do we care?
Right, change of use.
Well, it's not a change of use of 500 square feet, it's the change of use.
Yeah,
I mean, there isn't a size associated with it.
but I wonder if there should be.
Well, I think it's just a change of use, period.
We
which is what triggers it.
It triggers
Yeah.
so much, it could trigger a lot, just leaving it by change of use, you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the original intent is someone takes a house, wants to add commercial space, right? So now you have to think about parking,
Exactly.
access.
Right,
You know,
right.
you
I
may
think it-
want to beef up the landscape, have them do more landscaping, because it was a house, no one could make them do anything, but.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's really the intent of this, way this is.
So why don't we
written.
say commercial or institutional use?
Okay,
Change from residential use to commercial or institutional. But I also
Well,
would
there
like
are
to
other
see us
things
do
like
commercial.
Industrial, I mean, there are other
Yeah,
types
it
of
could be
uses.
manufacturing, could be
Yeah.
shops. or-
Yeah.
well,
Why put
I
such a
think-
fine point on it? Why not just
Yeah,
change
I
the
like
use?
change of use.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about we've been talking about the downtown. It would at least trigger if
I mean, like cargo, for example.
cargo came in with a change of use that's not commercial. At least it gives us a little bit of oversight over the church becoming residential. Or what's another good example?
You know, there's the
The gas station.
Well, the multifamily on the corner of School and Union.
Yep.
Used to be Linda Crosby's, but
Right.
you know,
I know what you mean.
where it has been suggested that they would change what had been residential to commercial. And do we want to?
Drag them through that.
Yeah.
Can we
I
grant
mean,
a
that
waiver?
seems like a beneficial change,
Yeah,
but maybe you could do an easy site plan.
Right.
I don't think I'm not sure, I don't know what Ann's referring to, but I don't think we're presupposing that it's not a beneficial change, it's just a change
Right,
to the
right,
use that
right.
deserves looking at.
Okay. I still think a change of use. That's broader. What do you, Mark's squirming?
yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily in favor of, like, reviewing everything. And driving, and so, usually, and commercial uses in our zoning chart are really just pretty much all the commercial.
Right,
okay.
Are under that one section. We have accessory, we have community, and residential, and that's about it. So commercial covers all
everything, yeah.
all the commercial stuff. So I think that was really the intent, is because, if someone's changing a house into something commercial, or butter issues potentially,
Right,
lighting,
right.
access, I mean, the number of things is, and so for that particular reason, even if they're not adding on to the building, or
but
adding
is this controlled by general zoning anyway? There aren't that many places that allow commercial use to begin with.
there's enough.
Just the
So
general
that's why I
definition
thought
of
it should just be focused to that one issue and not overly broad.
So you wouldn't go both ways, commercial to residential or
No.
residential to commercial?
Why would you review a residential?
Because
But
it's a way.
multifamily already has a different review process anyway.
No, I'm thinking of the
So if
downtown.
someone's
Gives us
I
a
get
little,
it.
if our downtown, if the bank wants to convert to 4 condos,
But it's site plan review, it's not a special
I know,
permit, so
but at
you
least it's
can't
a-
say unless there's some sort of,
does give a little bit of,
gives you a lot of control over what they put up. Gives
Right.
you a lot of control over what they put up.
I'd
but-
like to see us do residential to commercial and commercial to residential.
Okay.
Can I come back to number 3? It says 5 or more new parking spaces. I thought that we used to get site plan review exist, or, if there's a change proposed, whether they are existing 5 spaces or new 5 spaces for site plan review.
I think that's what the existing is.
Yeah, you just
That's
restated.
what I thought, yeah, but it says new parking spaces, so I think there's a change there from what it used to say, which was just
It's
5
the same.
spaces.
Oh, more new.
That's,
The
5 or
current
more.
says all existing and proposed driveway spaces, driveway opening server. Wait, requirements, sorry. Any new development, expansion, or change of use other than single or two-family in which under the parking schedule require 5 or more parking spaces, regardless of the number of parking spaces pre-existing on the premises.
So this is requiring 5 or more new.
Yeah, so I think we
I
should
would
just
strike
keep what we
new.
have today. Mark,
so,
it's on
let's see
page
it.
111.
Mhm.
Yep. Okay. Any other comments? Any comments from the folks online? Okay, seeing none. If anybody has any, please speak up. Yeah, go
One
ahead, Laura.
more in number 8, why do we get into those types of uses that are agricultural in nature? So we're accepting those.
Yes.
So we're allowing those by right? Is that a change? I'm only, the only reason I'm asking is because
So-
sometimes there are chemical heavy practices with those.
Yeah, but I think they're protected use under statute.
Right.
So I didn't want to get into.
I see.
And so the idea is if someone has a large piece of land and they start altering it, they create drainage problems, other things. And so if it's not necessarily in a wetland area, it's not going to go to conservation. So perhaps it ought to go through a planning board review prior to someone clearing a lot and impacting a neighbor with runoff, or, even if it's, so for example, the Summer Street property, if that was more than an acre, they would have to come. Now, they can do these permits concurrently.
Right.
So they don't have to come back. But it could have been reviewed, or that's, I don't remember if that's more than an acre of disturbance total.
And that's something that's fairly standard. You've taken that from other.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
fine.
it's been
That's
an
fine.
issue
Okay.
in other communities where there's more commercial. So
Yeah.
someone clears a lot, and next thing you know, there's cars parking there.
Yeah, it
There
wasn't
was
at all
no-
about
and
the
there was
alteration
no-
of land, it was
yeah.
just the.
The exemptions for the
Exemptions, so
Okay.
that's fine if they're justification for those.
Okay. Any other comments on that? All right.
The only thing is, he has 2 more comments, like what does this mean when an addition is proposed to an existing building, the planning board reserves the right to review the existing structure or site. So we already have requirements above, like what kicks in, so I think what she's saying is, well, why are you adding this as well? And what's this really mean if you're saying, if you're adding more 400 square feet or altering so much more, then why do we have this as well?
So she's saying, well, it does seem like it's sort of hanging out there.
Yeah, it's kind of hanging out there, and so.
Are you suggesting delete it?
Yeah, I would say
Yeah.
just delete it. Let's, we don't want,
We don't have.
yeah, we're beefing it up, and we don't need to make it more confusing
Yeah.
than to the public, because, let's say, take it out.
Okay. 9:00. Any other issues on zoning that people want to raise? The other one we talked about was just a article that just has the short-term rental prohibiting ADUs. We're gonna just make a separate article around that. Okay? All right, more discussion of general bylaws, section 46, driveway entrances and planning board regulation. So this is a fast-moving new info as of 4 p.m. right?
Yes, so I had a discussion with council this afternoon about the driveway entrance. She would like to have a follow-up discussion with Greg about it, but basically the summary is she feels that the entire regulations kind of really need to be revised. That it's placed in the general bylaw, and although it should be clarified, some of the items and issues. So she wants to have a follow-up discussion with Greg because he was present when this was revised in entirety about the applicability of planning board special permit. So the bylaw sets some standards, but then says standards beyond, other than this, gets referred for a special permit, but there's no standards in this, or you can't apply your zoning special permit standards to this because this is in the general bylaw. So the only standard you could apply is it a public safety hazard by allowing a second driveway or allowing a narrower driveway or whatever, or a wider driveway or a steeper driveway? Does it create a public, because that would be the only justification for not issuing a special permit because you have zero other criteria to use. So she recommends like a full rewrite of this. And she says if there's nothing that's absolutely pressing that needs to get done, let's work on it and then send it to the next town meeting.
Yeah, so this is what, I just kind of pasted it up there. I didn't take time to summarize it. I think the issue is, one of the issues that we have currently is that if somebody creates a violation and puts in two entrances, we mentioned this on School Street. So it's her, correct me if I'm wrong, it's her opinion that they can come and apply for a special permit and we can address it on a safety basis. And even though it's says there's only one allowed, that's her. And that going forward, we need to fix it so that there's special permit criteria, whether it's in general or goes back to zoning. The other thing is that this is driveway we've had this challenge of driveway entrances versus driveways, and they're mixed up in this general bylaw. And so it needs a little more thought, is her recommendation.
And then her other question had to do, which also needs clarification, is it a public roadway or a private roadway? So if it's a private roadway, then what would standards be? Obviously, there should be some standards for public safety, like the fire truck, but there are perhaps other standards that may not apply. So, or that you shouldn't be trying to regulate on a private roadway, let's say, such as the number of driveways onto a property if it's a private road. Maybe for public safety, you could regulate grades and widths.
I don't understand what criteria we would ever use besides public safety. If you don't like the color of the cement on the wall or something, I don't.
Well, it says ADA.
Well, that's public safety.
Yeah.
It's all public safety.
Yeah.
Well, the
Even
number of
driveway.
driveways is not necessarily a public safety issue at all.
You could make the case that it is. I mean,
Yeah.
there's literature out there, and the number of times you have a curb cut.
Mhm.
I'm across the
Yeah.
sidewalk, that's pedestrian safety.
Right, but most of
issue.
our roadways here, a lot of them don't have don't have sidewalks on
It's maybe
It
even,
doesn't mean people aren't walking
them. Yeah.
or riding a bicycle
I
on them.
understand, but a lot of,
Yeah.
so we have this problem of, the other, another example of the two driveway issue is there's a, house that had an old, easement across, historically had two entrances. One of them has not been used, and so the sidewalk, it needs a curb cut, actually. And that the topography of the house is such that you can't access half part of the house unless you have the second driveway. So there are circumstances, at least that one in my opinion, is like kind of a no-brainer that's coming soon. So there are sort of unique circumstances. And then we have the problem right now of somebody who's put in this two entrances, thinking that it was making things safer, whether they are or not. So that we need to contact them and say, come see us.
so they have been contacted by Public Works.
Yeah.
They were told to come see me, no one's come yet. In discussing this with council, she wants to clarify a few issues with Greg before she makes a final determination that they can come for the planning board for a special permit, even if there aren't criteria to do so.
Right. So I think the recommendation from Mark is that we limp along until we can, even though we've spent way too much time on this issue.
I think given the limited amount of time that we had since the last town meeting to now,
Yeah.
I think we've done pretty good getting, and we
Yeah.
had to address floodplain, you had to address ADUs. So you've done the things that you really have to. And so I would say, let's put this off and not create another haphazard rush to fix something, and let's, coordinate it with Public Works and Fire Department and council so that we can get it cleaned up and fixed up.
All right, sounds great, thank you. Any liaison reports?
No meeting since the last time we met a couple
Okay,
weeks ago.
any additional public
Oh,
comment?
actually, I do have some.
Oh, you have something to
The CPC did agree to increase the funding for the rotunda by $400,000 because one of the grants is not going to come through. Whether it's a federal grant that's been frozen, I don't know. I'm not sure the particulars of it, but so now we're putting our taxpayer money into the rotunda.
Okay. Ann?
So it was the coastal zone management and the funding that they had available. We had them down for, I think, $1 million, and they have $5 million in funding in total, give out grants, and they are looking particularly at grants that will improve public safety. And the rotunda is unlikely to make that cut.
Okay, thank you. Any public comment? Okay, minutes of January 13th.
Move to approve.
Okay,
Second.
any discussion?
Abstain.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Lastly, other matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair. Yes, I have one. Our special permit at Reed Park, which is really for the future extension, but applies to the whole thing, said that there should be no rafting of boats, tying two boats side by side. There's a group that's coming into Manchester Harbor, the Cruising Club of America, and they've asked to have an exemption for that through, and I think the select board is the one that can grant that exception. But Anne, she's just left, wanted to know if we had any strong feelings one way or the other. It's a non-weekend, Thursday, June 26th from 4 p.m. to Friday, the 27th at 10 a.m. So it's not a weekend, which wouldn't matter to me. Any thoughts?
So like how many boats? Big,
there were-
small?
Yeah, probably big. But there's people who spend a lot of money and go to the restaurants. I would say if they rafted 2 abreast, that would be fine for a limited time, but
This is
it is-
water use, not land use.
yeah. Do we have any, yeah, go ahead.
Only, I don't know anything about boats, so I'll just say that I'm a small craft person, but it makes me a little bit question it, because we did just say no rafting, and now we're
saying rafting.
Saying rafting, we're making exceptions, but I would defer to the harbor master on this, and to see whether he thinks it's safe and advisable.
Good plan. Okay, I will get back to Ann on that. Any other business? All right, we've got a lot done tonight. Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
As
Mark, for your
always.
preparation. I would suggest if anybody needs printouts of any of these things, to take them. And thank you, Shannon, for making all these copies. It was,
thank you, Shannon.
Jeff, if you'd like a copy of any of these, fascinating. Sorry to make you spend all that paper, but it was helpful to have them.
I move we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we
Thanks,
meet
everybody,
again on